Okay, wonderful. So it looks like we're live. Hello, welcome, and today we are going to be uh, hosting a tournament. It's going to be another Ranked League Champions, or our RLC for short, where we get the top players in the community to face off against each other. So, as you can see in front of you, there is the bracket. We're playing standard best of threes, and if you want to skip ahead to the actual matches, of course, there's always the timestamps down below, unless you're watching on stream, of course. D3 Willow, this is a tournament stream, indeed, as are all RLC tournaments. We got Ingo here too. Hello, Viking, welcome. Hope everything's going well for you, and I'm excited to do some casting today. I decided to sit out. We did have enough players signed up, thankfully, to where I don't need to buffer the participants, so it should be quite exciting. Now, right now we're watching the match between Legion and Blood Penguin, and it seems like we are seeing Bretonia and Chaos selection first, so quite exciting. Hello, Ingo. Have you been on my streams before? I'm not sure if I fully recognize your name, but if you have, my deepest apologies, for sure. Now, Bretonia Chaos. How do we feel about this? Bretonia has a couple bad matchups, a couple really bad matchups. You might see something like the Lizardmen, Vampire Coast. You might see, let's see, I don't know what else. What's the third terrible matchup for them? I know that there is one. Oh, Dwarves, absolutely terrible. And out of those three, I think Dwarves and Coast, probably the best against Chaos too. But Legion, instead going for the Vampire accounts, which is an interesting choice. It's good against Chaos, but against Bretonia, I think some people have said it has been Bretonia favored. That's correct, I'm not playing today. I wasn't able to meet the LP bracket to sign up, as I have been grinding out a bit of Age of Empires, and it's always nice to take it a little bit easy for these tournaments and simply watch these very strong players go up against each other. I am quite excited to see how this plays out. We should be seeing about 3 best of 3s today, but if we are unlucky, well, actually, we can just follow the winners all the way to the finals. So we should be able to find matches pretty quickly, and then from there we will see who the winner is. In the meantime, while we wait, special shout out to the wonderful patrons. Real quick, these guys over here, absolute amazing people. As the ladder, it spends a lot to, for maintenance and especially giving prizes and so on. So having those people support basically lets us host as many events as we can handle, which is absolutely amazing. So very much special thanks to them, and LoremasterOfSotek too, who is contributing wonderfully. Check out the description for his Lorebeards podcast, which is a podcast of all things Warhammer. I was even on it too, talking about multiplayer. So I can say that I am definitely very excited about it in general. But for the tournament today, let's talk about matchups. We got Vampire Counts against the Bretonians, as expected, as the Counts are wonderfully strong against Chaos. Well, wonderfully for some. And for this matchup, you have a bit of a predicament here. Vampire Counts, they have 2 avenues of attack. One is to go very heavy on the air game, and to try to dominate that and use their superior air mobility to win fights. This can be strong, although quite risky, because many of their problematic factions can win the air battle if they choose to. This makes it a risky choice, but if they do manage to win the air fight, that's usually a really nice lead for the Vampire Counts early on. For the Bretonians, they sort of have the same predicament. If they go all ground, all cavalry, they will get charged in the back by the flying Vampire Counts units, and that would be very painful indeed. But if it's a ground fight on both sides, then the Bretonians are going to be feeling a little bit more comfortable. Their cavalry is quite elite, and the Fey Enchantress can be quite threatening for sure. Bane saying hello there. Let's see, glad to see some of the Total War people stayed their course and didn't jump on the AoE train. Well, I was talking about how I was playing it quite a bit, but one thing that's great as a growing channel is that I get to fill in specific niches, and in this case, covering Warhammer content seems to be a pretty good niche right now to dive into. You know, for anyone who still wants a lot of Warhammer content and isn't as interested in Age of Empires. But as we get on into the match, we are seeing the vampire counts. Will they have an air force? Yes, but a very small one indeed. It's going to be a single unit of Fellbats, sort of just to mitigate any flying units of the Bretonians, which they also did not opt to go for. We got some Crypt Horrors, and actually a very low cavalry build on the Count side. Oh, there is the Red Duke in the air though. And he's not on a dragon. This is showing that... Oh, actually, this is the Red Duke, so he doesn't even have the Tempest ability. Interesting. So it's sort of like a half commit into the air game. But I'm interested to see how it goes. We have 2 black coaches, too. Very, very strange build. Usually when you see the counts go for the ground, it's a lot of cavalry. Perhaps I'm not fully kept up with the meta, but... an interesting one for sure. We have some mass, really nice against the cavalry of the Bretonians, and some dogs to chase down the archers. Now, in terms of the air gambit, like I said, Bretonians, this time they didn't go for any air at all. And this means that the Red Duke, singular, is going to have a really nice time sniping out the Fey Enchantress. As he is more or less uncontested, he can dive in however he wishes. Fey Enchantress does have dwellers below though, and this seems like a pretty heavy infantry army for the Bretonians. Lots of spears, even a couple men-at-arms on the front line, along with a bunch of cavalry. So these guys are all questing knights. This is meant to defeat a cavalry force of the vampire counts, but in this case, there is no cavalry for the vampire counts. The Crypt Horrors don't have a lot of armor either, so the extra money spent on the questing knights is a little bit wasted. However, I feel like having this cavalry advantage is going to be pretty scary for the counts. I'm interested to see how they manage to mitigate that, perhaps with the Red Duke, perhaps distracting with these good dogs over here on the far side, or perhaps just the Crypt Horrors are gonna hard carry. Well, they do well against cavalry, as do all monstrous units. So I think overall, they're going to be playing a rather large part. The infantry, though, for the counts is very thin. Most of the money went into these black coaches, actually, which would be... you know, they'll be having a very hard time against cavalry indeed. They'll have to play the avoidance game, and overall I think Bretonians have a pretty nice advantage here right off the bat. But as the battle starts, we're seeing the armies. They're just going to be marching towards each other. There's no skirmishers on both sides, so really they're just looking to get into position and to start firing away. We have Bretonian archers too. They're not very hindered by the forests, but what the knights will probably want to do is to avoid these patches of forest as much as possible, as it will mitigate their mobility, and that is definitely something that they want to be focusing on. Vampire counts slowly advancing too. We got the dogs. They have pretty open field to harass the archers here, and they don't even need to get engaged. One mistake that you see a lot of people make is they will suicide their dogs in to shut down the archers, but that's not always needed. Instead, you just hang around the backside, maybe like around here. The knights can't chase you because it would not be worth using your expensive knights to chase dogs. And then as the archers rout off from the front line, with the red arrow, there we go. As they rout off from the front line, your dogs can munch them down. And overall, it's a pretty good time. The question is, though, can the front line of the counts actually push into this Bretonian front line? We got the spears, we got the men-at-arms. It's a lot more elite than you're usually used to. But we'll have to see. The army's still sort of just vying for position, making sure that they're squared off. The Bretonians have a little bit more opportunities to go for a flank overload, as they are slightly more mobile, but even that would be a little bit difficult and not very advantageous either. We do see a couple knights though trying to get a better position on the counts, but overall they haven't been able to get any charges in yet. And the Red Duke, he doesn't have any abilities to really put the Bretonians on the clock, so they can more or less have some pretty free reign, but a nice zombie summon does drop, and this does result in a few of the knights getting caught up. It seems like they will mostly be able to escape, but the Fey Enchantress, she does decide to engage. And will this be a scary situation for her? It looks like for the count, they're looking not to engage here, and instead just doing a little bit of work, burning down the, bringing up the fatigue for the Bretonnians. But now the Red Duke is deciding to get engaged. The Fey Enchantress didn't manage to get a full escape yet, and she hasn't been debuffed yet. The Red Duke getting a solid charge in. Comet dropping to Chalice of Potions, dodged by the Crypt Horror is definitely quite nice. But how is the Fey Enchantress doing? It seems like she's doing quite well so far with the Knight and Paladin Bodyguard. And this is a really nice trade for Bretonnia so far. A little bit of a precarious one though, as the Fey Enchantress, if she goes down, that would be terrible. Over here, some dogs getting caught by the Knights. This is a good pick for the Bretonnians for sure, but one of the Peasant Archers does get caught. While the Knights were distracted, those dogs did manage to find a good engage, and the Fey Enchantress, with the debuff, getting engaged on by the Red Duke. All buffs procs too, but she does manage to escape at half HP too. She's not in that much danger of dying here, and overall I think the Bretonnians made it out of this situation fairly well. Good heal too on the Knights, that's going to be picking them back up. And over here on the right flank of Bretonnia, it looks like they're doing quite well. Those Knights are at high HP and cleaning up for sure. The Archers, though, have gone shut down pretty hard. There's only 2 of them left, one on the verge of routing, but it looks like they will just barely be able to stand around. And this is going to be great for shutting down that Mortis engine. Archers, just a great tool against such a large target. That's going to be helping out a lot, and you can see it can't even get engaged currently. Red Duke in the air, he doesn't have much to worry about. And on the left flank, it seems like the Bretonnians are holding too. So overall, the Archers are fairly safe, but another good zombie summon shuts down one of them. Unfortunately, it seems like these guys won't be routing, and the Fey Enchantress even passing by them, providing that leadership, means that they won't be running anytime soon. The right flank for Bretonnia, though, getting a little bit scary. One of the Knights routing off. There's nothing to chase them down, though, unless these dogs manage to get by. But, oh man, those dogs in the backfield, gonna be devastating. Chasing down one of the Peasant Bowmen. No, passing right through them to rout off another, potentially. And that is the ranged power for the Bretonnians down. Now, they do still have the cavalry and mobility strength. If we take a look at the Crypt Horrors, they are pretty beat up. So overall, I think in the melee fight, Bretonnia is still quite scary, but we'll have to see. He'll be a little bit scary for sure, especially with the Mortis engine nearby. But wow, the Black Coach taking a lot of damage from those lion-hearted Knights. Over here, 2 Paladins killing off the Crypt Horrors. They do really well there, and Fey Enchantress healing up too. So it seems like Bretonnia is stabilizing. But the left flank is starting to collapse. Crypt Horrors are pushing through, but these Knights, questing Knights, holding them down. It seems like they should be able to do that for quite some time too. I think they'll be quite comfortable holding the line for the rest of the Bretonnians to not get flanked. And over here, we still have a couple Knights. They're cycle charging, and there's not a lot to really chase them down. Those dogs too seem like they disintegrated. No, they engaged in melee and are now down to 0 models. And it seems like Bretonnian has taken the lead, with the Knights managing to stay alive, and even the Peasant Archers not getting chased off. That's really going to be brutal for the Vampire counts, as their Crypt Horrors are going to take a lot of damage from those shots. Over here, a nice charge onto these Crypt Horrors too. They don't have any more infantry support, which means they're going to be taking a lot of damage, and unless there's a huge pick on the Fey Enchantress, I don't really see the Vampire counts making it back. But where is that Fey Enchantress? We see 2 Paladins duking it out against the Red Duke. Fey Enchantress over here in the center at very high HP. I think the Red Duke, he might have his abilities on cooldown too. So I don't think he'll be finishing things off. Crypt Horrors get finished off too. And the Black Coach now moving in. Gonna be trying to shut down the Peasant Bowmen. It's gonna do well here. May even terror rout them. But we got Knights on its tail trying to chase it down. Over here, back in the center, Mortis engine doing pretty good work, but it is a very slow damage over time, and it requires a lot of units to be nearby. So even though it does terror out these Knights, there are still quite a lot of Bretonnian units that it has to contend with. And this Black Coach too, getting surrounded by the Knights. Will it get bogged down? It seems like it will. But no, actually just barely managing to escape. It will be a thorn in the Bretonnian side a bit longer. But these Paladins completely uncontested now. They're going to take down one of the black coaches, even heel capped, and likely the Mortis engine too. Red Duke looking for a good position. Gonna be going in on the Fey Enchantress. Does he have a debuff? I'm not sure yet. I think he lands a hit. Some pretty good damage, but the Fey Enchantress is getting healed. Possibly another hit landing, but not a ton of damage. And it seems like she will be making it, she will be surviving long enough to do quite well here. The debuff does drop though, but will she be able to disengage? If she does, it means that this debuff is not going to do much. And overall, not a lot of hits landing. It seems like the Red Duke, actually, yeah, he's not even facing towards the Fey Enchantress, attacking some knights instead. And the Fey Enchantress only brought down to half HP, but she may very well rout. Although it looks like she will be escaping instead. That's going to be really nice for the Bretonians. And that was really the last Hail Mary play we would see from the Vampire count. But perhaps another one down the line over here. Black Coach getting surrounded by the Knights, completely bogged down. They have a lot less mass than you would expect against cavalry. And this one Knight stopping it from moving forwards. What a hero. And the Red Duke is going to take off again, but now with no infantry support. Going to get double charged by the Paladin right in the back. Tons of damage. And although there is a zombie summon, we see some Knights moving in too. And it seems like he won't even be able to take off in the air. Pretty brutal for him. Black Coach moving into the Fey Enchantress, but it does do magic damage. So she's going to be taking 40% less damage from the Black Coach. Not worried in the slightest about her, and that's army losses for the Vampire counts. So that's Blood Penguin taking game number 1 in this here tournament today. Will they be able to win the next one? We will have to see. You think a multiplayer match between the Tomb Kings and Carrions would be the greatest thing ever? Tomb Kings with only Carrions. You know, I've always been interested to see something like a low model count sort of gameplay, since it relies so heavily on cycle charging. The micro would be insane. Although obviously not the standard format we want to be taking. Now for army values, we're seeing the Bretonians doing quite well. The archers did get shut down a bit, but they still managed to pay for themselves in the late game, having rallied. And it seems like although this Count's army was quite scary, the Red Duke just wasn't able to snipe out the Fey Enchantress. And that really was the win condition for the Counts, along with the Black Coaches, which I feel were sort of an off pick, perhaps, for maybe a mass infantry build. I'm not entirely sure, but in that particular situation, they definitely suffered quite a bit. Now, oh, actually, wait, was it who picked first? Who was picked first? It was Blood Penguin that picked first. Okay, and then Legion that went Vampire counts. Okay, yeah, and now Legion is going Tomb Kings and Dark Elves. Probably a couple of counters here, I would believe. Tomb Kings and Dark Elves, but they may have some pretty nice overlap. Carrion only led by Foot Kotep with no spells. Amazing. Chariots against Bretonia is certainly interesting to try it. Yeah, it was an interesting choice. I like Chariots against Bretonia as the Beastmen, specifically because the Beastmen chariots are so cheap. It's cost effective to distract cavalry with them. But when it comes to Black Coaches, since they are as expensive as questing knights, it starts becoming a worthwhile trade for Bretonia. Perhaps a threat overload is what Legion was looking for, you know, to use those Black Coaches in conjunction with the Crypt Horrors to make sure that the knights can't deal with everything. Maybe it'd be better against a flying type of Bretonian build. We may never know. But the speculation is afoot. Now, Blood Penguin going for the High Elf pick. That's going to be pretty even against Dark Elves. And it's actually going to be a High Elf versus Tomb Kings game, which is very interesting. This is a matchup that you rarely see. And Legion, Champion, very big fan of the pick 2 format, will really know how to tease out some strange matchups for sure. And in this case, it seems like he has managed to. And, you know, we sometimes see this matchup, but it's definitely quite uncommon. Tomb Kings have much harder counters, and High Elves have much harder counters for sure, too. So oftentimes neither player is playing it. So I'm excited to see how this goes. All right, so in terms of builds, the High Elves have a couple options here. They usually, well, from what I've seen anyways, they go for a Metal Caster, debuff the armor of the Tomb King's constructs, and then shoot at them with some arrows. That's the general idea there. You'll see a lot of silver in guard to hold the line. And as for the Tomb Kings, well, it's typically a rush from what I've seen. There are many variations of a rush too, and sometimes you will see the rogue, what's it called? Casket of Souls, which is always nice. Man, we haven't seen Tomb Kings in a while. I'm excited for this, but yeah, you'll see the Casket of Souls sometimes. Tomb Kings will lose hard to the High Elf cavalry force if the High Elves want to contest that in the slightest. So they really have to make sure that they have strong monsters on the flanks if they want to win that. The High Elves, on the other hand, they will run into some issues where the Tomb Kings generally have cheaper mobility, and that will allow them to find a couple gaps in the High Elf lines, usually to dive in on their range units. That's the general meta of this. Although sometimes you will see the High Elves go for single entities too, and try to rush down the Tomb Kings, especially when they're dealing with units such as Ushapti. High Elves will often go for something along a more rush type of play. You know, use some Phoenixes usually, maybe even an Arcane Phoenix, but that can be a bit rare. So definitely a few options here. A few options, but neither really being a coin flip scenario. A lot of it will come down to how well these players play here. High Elves have so many choices for fire damage. That is true. That is true. Although many of their fire casters will not have healing, which means that potential snipes are going to be a bit of a threat. Ushapti, Arc in the Black, Spirit Leech spam, the usual. We've seen it before. So it can be a little bit scary for the High Elves, and you don't usually want to commit to 2 casters lest they get too expensive. Tomb Kings against them seems kind of crazy. Yeah, I personally would have gone for the Dark Elf pick, but I'm pretty sure Legion, he does enjoy his Tomb Kings quite a bit. So in terms of skill in this matchup, I feel like Legion is going to be pretty comfortable here. As is expected, when you're the one picking and banning, you get to sort of direct where how the matchups and battles are dictated. But overall, quite fun. Do you guys have any crazy ideas on what you might expect in this matchup today? I personally feel like we'll probably get some pretty standard play. I don't think we'll see anything too crazy from the High Elf side, but we are going in. We are loaded into the game. We shall see how it goes. All right, now I need to do a quick thing on Discord, and then we can dive right on into the game. All right, there we go. Sorry for the delay. Where are we at? Double Hybrid Titan? Ooh, that'd be fun. You want to see some dead knife ears? Okay, Gujira. Not a fan of the High Elves. Want to see Legion come back in an ace match today. But we'll have to... I'm going to stop myself from finishing that sentence. Lyle Trial saying, good day, Enticity. Evening here in Europe. Was lucky to turn on the PC and saw you were streaming now. Or streaming, comma. Now I got the popcorn ready and looking forward to this. Wish people would play more Tomb Kings. Yeah, I feel like people could play more Tomb Kings too. Although they... Well, actually, with the pick 2 system, it is a little bit more possible, but... Happy to have you here. Now, In this match for the Tomb Kings, we are seeing Necropolis Knights, Halberds, and Stalkers. Quite a scary combo indeed. Very nice anti-large here. Some chariots too, and fairly thin, no, pretty elite infantry force. We got 1 unit of Tomb Guard. We got 2 units of Tomb Guard. Very elite by Tomb King standards. But what? We got 2 Necropolis Knights. It's pretty good against single entities. That's sort of the gist of this. It's going to be a rush too, no range units. We got the Lord and a Lich Priest of Nehekara. Now, Flying Taco was saying, so it's talking about this spell right here. Usex. Oh man, that, I've never said that before. But this spell over here, it's going to be a Helm of Discord for 15 Winds of Magic, and it lasts 38 seconds. Quite scary indeed. If you look at the Overcast, even bigger effect on melee attack. It's quite a scary spell. This is going to be really nice in any single entity fight, and should go well for the rush too. Over here we have the Incantation of Vengeance. This one does direct damage, and overall doesn't do that much damage from what I've seen in testing, but we may see it used possibly against cavalry. I think it's mostly good against infantry, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on how that's used. There are a few carrion too, but overall pretty standard Tomb King's army for the High Elves. Like I was saying, we are seeing 2 Flame Spire Phoenixes. You see these guys to defeat the single entities of the Tomb Kings here. Some Silver Helms, Dragon Princes too, and more Silver Helms. A pretty thin High Elf army actually. There is an Archmage of Fire, surely with Burning Head indeed, and Fireball along with a host of other abilities. There's a Stealth one and a lot of Winds of Magic. And some Bolt Throwers to defend. Now, these Bolt Throwers are going to have their work cut out for them. They cost quite a bit on the High Elf side, and they need to get good damage, but they don't have a lot of support here. A lot of these Tomb King's forces could just push through, and the High Elves are going to have to take a really strong engagement to stop them, to make it worth losing these Bolt Throwers. So overall, I'd say I'm a little bit worried for the High Elves here, but perhaps these single entities will do better than I think. The Bolt Throwers too will be great against the Necropolis Knights. You can see they're getting focused down right away. Legion reacting though, gonna be dodging immediately. I don't think he didn't even take a single hit, so some pretty good dodging right off the bat. Some more Bolt Thrower shots going, but one does land a shot. But this isn't going to be too consequential as long as Legion is paying attention, and it's usually towards the mid-range where you'll expect players to start taking more damage from the Bolt Throwers. Over here on the flank, we are seeing the Necropolis Knights. They unstealth and get a really nice shot on the Silver Helms, taking out about 8 models there. No, like closer to 10. That is pretty rough for the High Elves here, but not completely devastating. Still quite painful indeed. Phoenixes getting some cycle charging in on the Tomb Guard too, but they want to be dropping their bombs for sure. Another thing, if we look at the infantry for both sides, the Tomb Kings outnumber the High Elves. So you're going to see cavalry is going to have to fight Tomb King's infantry, which is not the best case scenario for them. Plus these chariots too, going to be trying to push through the silver, the Silverin Guard. But they get bogged down by their very high mass, these chariots. They do some pretty nice damage, but overall, not pushing through the front lines by any means. Got the Tomb King, potentially might want to slip through too, or get some cycle charges on the infantry. We are seeing the Silverin getting shut down quite hard, but the Flamespire Phoenixes are doing quite well right now. A big Burning Head will be dropping too. Silverin pulling back perhaps a little bit too early. One of the Tomb Guard managed to avoid that ability. In fact, I think it was it was a terror route actually, which is really brutal here. A Burning Head going to get no value here. That's pretty rough. Dragon Princes though, paying back for the missed Burning Head for sure. Slamming into those chariots, and taking them out. Fireball dropping on the Tomb King too, getting a little bit of poke damage. That's not gonna change the game by any means though. And one of the Phoenixes getting brutalized by these Necropolis Knight Halberds. Oh my goodness, it does manage to take off into the air, but that's a terrible trade for the High Elves indeed. Another thing, I believe one of the Phoenix has fallen. No, it's at full HP. Never mind. We're good. We're good. I was a little bit worried there for a second. But yes, we do have one Phoenix at really low HP. It could get some healing if it does get its healing proc. But aside from that, there's actually no healing for these Phoenixes. So the High Elves gonna be a little bit worried here. Over here on the side too, in the back, the Dragon Prince is getting terror routed. And overall, I think the Tomb Kings are going to be taking a pretty nice lead here, as both sides are really getting in the main engagement here. And there aren't a ton of ways that the High Elves can really pull back in value, just because they don't have a lot of range units. The Dragon Princes with their cycle charging though could be quite scary. And of course these spears are really strong too against these large units. Dragon Prince is looking to get a really nice square charge also, but they get the incantation of desiccation. Doesn't matter very much on the charge, however, as they have a huge charge bonus. But after that charge bonus wears off in about 10 seconds, they're barely going to be doing any damage. That's going to be almost 30 seconds of no damage unless they pull back for another big charge. And it looks like, there we go, they are pulling back. This is definitely a good choice for the High Elves here. And but the Stalkers are still alive. They're poking away at the Lord. This Phoenix over here too, down to half HP. And we're seeing these debuffs really get a lot of work in. As for the Chariots, they've been cleaning up the infantry quite well, but there are still quite a few units left. Fireball on the Necropolis Knights. Nice value, taking out some models, pushes them closer to crumbling, and a mighty charge from the Dragon Princes. That's going to be taking them out. What's really rough though for the High Elves, the Phoenix, Flamespire Phoenix, one of them gets taken out, and that means that there's only just one left against this Tomb King. That is not the greatest fight ever, especially since it's low on HP, but a big heal could really change things up. Not to mention, the Archmage of Fire in the air still has a lot of combat potential, and we could see her do some nice cycle charges in the late game if the High Elves can pull back on the infantry. Phoenix looking for blood too, fights the Tomb King, and he doesn't decide to take the fight. Another Burning Head does drop too, missed how much damage it did, but it looks like the Tomb Guard are more or less gone. There is still 60 models over here. That's going to be pretty scary. In the distance, some Skeleton Warriors too, and an out of position unit of Tomb Guard. This is going to hurt the Tomb Kings a bit, but once they finally do get back into combat, it's going to be pretty rough. Necropolis Knights too, or no, Sepulchral Stalkers, acting as a good amount of mass for the Tomb Kings. I think they have managed to take this match today, but I'm wondering if the High Elves can pull it back. The Dragon Princes, they are down to 19 models, and we must remember, there is no healing for them. Phoenix does get its healing proc though, potentially could come back in the late game. The High Elves really just have to shut down the Stalkers, and they're good, but overall, pretty scary. Pretty scary for sure. Phoenix at high HP though, rallying, gonna be coming in to shut down the Lich Priest. Pretty easy pickings here. Over here in the distance, we're seeing the Spears. They're trading quite well, and potentially I would expect quite a few more Burning Heads to be on the way. Skeleton Warriors too will be blocking for the Stalkers. That's going to be a nice play for the Tomb Kings. I'm wondering if the single entities will dive in on top of them, as the cavalry surely won't be able to do that well against the Stalkers. And as you can see, they do get routed off. A couple spears in the distance though coming back, just some damaged spearmen, nothing too crazy. But what are we seeing on the infantry for the High Elves? We have a unit of Silverin. That's going to be helping them out quite a bit. And but that's just one unit of Silverin. Now, in terms of what can actually take them out, not actually a ton, aside from cycle charging from the Tomb King. He does have time though, since the High Elf single entities are a little bit distracted. And as for the Phoenix, it's going to be harassing the Tomb King. So pretty nice for the High Elves so far. And in fact, these units disintegrating is going to be helping out quite a bit. But it comes down to how well this Tomb King can deal with the single entity fight. We're seeing over here the Phoenix distracted by the Stalkers. It's going to be taking a little bit of damage, and the Archmage of Fire is committing too, with a pretty nice Burning Head also on that Tomb Guard unit. Oh my goodness, taking out maybe a third of their HP, possibly more. And the Tomb King, my bad, trying to get engaged, but he doesn't manage to connect with the Phoenix. I think a single unit of cavalry might have been getting in his way. And that's really nice for the High Elves here. Balance of power now pulling back in their favor. You know, we were calling the High Elves out, but never say never. It seems like they are pulling back into the battle. Silver and Guard at 40 models, they're likely going to be getting a lot of terror routes here, which will be rough for them, and the Stalkers are still alive. So it's definitely not going to be an easy win for the High Elves by any means, but at least their infantry will be rallying once they come back to the sides of the battlefield. The Tomb Kings can't afford to chase them down because there is a bolt thrower crew here, and by splitting up their units, these single entities would be able to cycle charge them, but the Tomb King, showing the Phoenix who's boss, dives in right on top of it, gets some really nice hits. I think he landed 2 hits there, and the Phoenix is on the verge of routing. Meanwhile, the single unit of skeleton warriors being problematic, shutting down the Eagle Claw bolt throwers, and the Stalkers trading well into the Archmage of Fire. They run out of ammunition though, so their overall battlefield impact is going to be much lowered. And for the Silver and Guard, if they rout off again, I think they're shattered. Will they shatter off the battlefield? No, it looks like they will have one more rally left in them, but after that, they're going to be gone. That's going to be quite scary indeed for the Tomb Kings once they're silver and come back, but potentially a misplay. The Archmage of Fire getting engaged on the Stalkers a bit earlier. There's no infantry support, and the Tomb King is gonna take her out. Basically at no HP left, she won't be able to do much. The Phoenix now getting shut down by the Stalkers, and although a really close game, the high HP Tomb King by the end of it all really did manage to pull through. I guess maybe a single bolt thrower crew, if they've managed to reman the artillery and shoot him down, they might do well, but it's going to be army losses for the High Elves. They fluctuate back and forth as the Phoenix actually gets its healing proc, but the High Elves will not be able to win it today, and Legion will be taking game number 2. Nice game for both players. I think the Tomb Kings were really well kitted out to win against this composition. They had a lot of anti-single entity, so those Phoenixes just really couldn't get that much damage. And if you look at the bolt thrower crews, they did get pretty good damage. They were focusing down the Necropolis Knights for the whole game, but they just weren't able to really finish them off fast enough. Silver and Guard though, amazing unit, they did well. Took a bit of damage from the chariots though, but overall pretty good play from both sides. Tomb King though, absolute hero. Alright, yeah, it's not gonna be easy versus Legion, for sure. This is definitely a matchup that he's practiced before. And now the players are going to be moving on to a pick 3 situation. There are a lot of different things that... there's a lot of different things that the players can go for in a pick 3. The options are nearly endless, really, so... I'm interested to see what the players go for. Overall, you should be able to find an even matchup if you can get your pick 3 effectively, which is why I did release a script to do it properly. For anyone unfamiliar with the system, the way pick 3 works is that you select 3 factions. You ban one faction from that your opponent can't pick, and then they will get to ban one of your 3 and then counter pick. So, you know, if you go Dwarves, Chaos, and Lizardmen, your opponent can ban Dwarves and then play as a Dark Elves or something. So it leaves a lot of different options for both players, but yeah, it seems like Legion is gonna need a second. Apparently he did not download my script. How could he? I'm not insulted actually, but he's gonna need to select. So in the meantime, we get to sit back, relax, and catch up with chat. Bubba's Big Blast saying Burning Head probably wouldn't do too much to Tomb Guard anyway, given their high armor. I would beg to differ. A good Burning Head, you know, you need at least 100 armor to really resist that well. And I think Tomb Guard, they only have like 70, right? It's not that much. 50. Yeah, it's not that much at all. That means at best, they're only negating half the damage, and on average, they're negating like 33%. Not the best situation to be in. Is a Tomb King on a War Sphinx plus Nehekara caster more cost efficient than Cetra, who is both in one? So the Tomb King, he comes with a few abilities that can really help him out. He can be a little bit tankier than Cetra in some situations. Plus the caster can be left on the side. I'm not sure how the pricing actually adds up. But I think it's only a little bit more expensive to have the caster there. But overall, yeah, I feel it's a bit strange that we didn't see Cetra. I know the Tomb King does have a lot of abilities that make him passively a lot tankier. So perhaps that's the reason why we saw him. Lots of penguins here today. Really? I've only seen one. I've only seen one. You smell the influence of Zinch. Well, I have no idea what you're talking about. Lyle Trial saying, love your commentary, but how are you able to keep the overview of everything that is going on is crazy to you? I guess that's what makes a great player. Well, thank you. It also comes with like the 2 years of Warhammer practice that I've had, even more even. So, you know, yeah, when you've been playing the game for this long, eventually it gets processed a lot easier, I guess. Such is the way of things. And this is the only thing that I would say I'm an expert at. Many other things in life I am absolutely terrible. JR saying, but does he rule the Tomb King? Definitely not. Definitely not. And that is a minor loss on the Tomb Kings every time we do not see Cetra for sure. But there we go. We do have to pick 3. Greenskins, Coast, and Wood Elves. Banning the Counts. Pretty good pick. Very fast counter pick. Empire banning the Greenskins. Which means that it's Empire against Vampire Coast, or the Wood Elves. That generally pretty good counter, I would say, from Blood Penguin here. As against Coast, I would say it's slightly favored for Empire, unless the Vampire Coast player has been training for their entire lives. And for the Wood Elves, it's pretty rough too. Legion looking to go for the Wood Elf pick. But overall, both is going to be pretty scary. Let's see, just joined in. How long until the game? Probably not too long. I would say like 10 to 5 minutes, depending on how quickly the players here manage to set up their armies. So, you know, if you want to go and make tea, now is a good time. If you want to skip ahead in the video, well, you know, if you wait a couple hours, you'll be able to do that when we're done casting. So, you know, the options truly endless for you. And it's going to be a Vampire Coast pick. Very interesting. Now, most people gonna grab a beer. Sweet. Hope to see you when you're back. Most people, when they go Coast, they play very differently from my usual style. I like to go for deck gunners and sort of augment with a bomber front line. Maybe go for flying airbats and get some dogs and sirens in there. But that is not the only way to play against Empire. There are many styles, with only a few that don't really work. You can go for a Silostra rush with some Leviathans. If you can dive in on the Huntsman fast enough, they will get shut down. You can go for a mass artillery style, which also goes well. Gunnery White style, where you take 2 Gunnery Whites on crabs and snipe out Marcus Wolfheart. A little bit more risky against artillery. And overall, there's a few ways to play it. Moringal Rush is pretty... sort of used to be the older meta. I'm not sure how many people are really doing that nowadays. But yeah, definitely a lot of options for sure. I think in terms of the Empire side, it's pretty samey, I would say. There's been a lot of experimentation in the past where, you know, people will go like Hellstorm rocket batteries, which, you know, they do well against the range units of Coast, but overall not that much damage. I wouldn't recommend them overall. Some people, you know, they'll go for like... Well, that's really the biggest experimentation, isn't it, I guess. The standard is you go a lot of Huntsmen, you go some Flagellants, you take 1 or 2 units of cannons, and then you just shoot the Coast to death. A couple units of cavalry to keep your Huntsmen alive, and that really is the name of the game here. Can you keep your Huntsmen alive? There's a couple ways to do that, and I'm interested to see if Blood Penguin manages to do it. Is there any matchup you think you cannot play properly? Tons of matchups. There's 215 different matchups out there in the game. I think 15 times 15, 225 matchups to play. And in terms of like, can I beat, you know, a newer player with any matchup? Probably, but against many people, you know, there's just a ton of matchups that aren't really worth practicing, just because you don't see them very often in tournaments. So let's take like High Elves against I don't know. Let's say High Elves against Beastmen. This is a matchup I will basically never play in tournaments with my picks and bans, and it's one that I've like never played before, essentially. Maybe only a couple times ever. So I would say I'm vastly underprepared there, although I could whip something together that would do okay, and if provided a build and explanations on how to play it, I think I could do it okay. Definitely not against a pro Beastman player though. Style points for Hellfire though, or Hellstorm. They're definitely style points, but I have not seen it pay off before. Generally it doesn't work out because it runs out of ammunition. The Empire definitely wishing that they had the restock ammo ability that dwarves and the coast have. But not today. Not today. Real quick, I'm just gonna check my Discord to make sure nothing is on fire. And it seems like we're good. Wonderful. Wonderful. There was a discussion today about the rules, as me and the mods have been ruling incorrectly for single entity cycle charging, which has now been clarified, and based on a vote that I put up on the Discord, it seems like people are they want to make sure that we're staying consistent with the rules. This is what I personally would have wanted to. So that's going to be the plan once we, you know, after this tournament, essentially, and after we give it a day for the votes to come in, because making sure that we're consistent across tournaments is my general goal, after making sure that the community is willing to do so too. And I'm happy that they are. Now, as we load into the match, I'm excited to see what we have, but some last second comments here. D3 Willow saying, only just realized it's Even Star. Is that the world champion Even Star? It is. It is. We got Even Star to play on the ladder. It's amazing, guys. I saw him grinding out some games earlier. So really excited to get some like, you know, like we've been getting top tier players before, but to get more of a to get more and more people here joining in the tournament, it's great. It really shows that we're growing, and I do hope to make it to, you know, to have it be a mainstay series that people are from all around are willing to join and play. But armies for the Vampire Coast, we are seeing a deck dropper style of play. It's going to be bombers, my personal favorite matchup to bring bombers in. We got some bombers on the ground too, some dogs, some gunnery mob. We're gonna ignore these guys for a second. Silostra with with the leadership debuff spell. That one's interesting. Not great against flagellants, but pretty good in a rush. And we got a healing and zombie summon caster as the main source of magic use here. So overall pretty standard, except for these guys. We got 3 animated Hulks. Now the thing about these guys, they have no armor. They're basically worse Morin goals, but in some situations they can do better. Specifically, they'll have higher numbers because they're cheaper, but they will take a lot of damage from Huntsmen, and I'd be a little bit worried about that. As for the Empire side, what are we seeing? We do see 2 units of Huntsmen, 1 unit of archers, and a single silver bullets. Overall, a pretty thin ranged front. Usually I'm used to seeing 5 Huntsmen here for the Empire, but instead opting for a lot more defense to protect these guys. We'll see how well that pays off. Silostra has a way of shutting down the back line, even if you have a lot of infantry support. But I'm willing to wait and see. Volkmar, very standard pick here too, as he is amazing versus Sirens. This time there are no Sirens though to actually move on in. And he's really, really good in the late game. He'll cycle charge down Noctilus, like it's no issue in the slightest. And without gunnery wights, Volkmar is a scary beast for sure. I found that the single entity squad for Empire can really ruin your day if you don't manage to deal with that well enough. And we also have some Empire Knights to make sure that the dogs can't really do too much. But the main question is whether or not these deck dropper bombers are going to be a big threat, as they will be able to clear out the infantry really quickly. And the Empire, it's really on them to shut them down. The Vampire Coasts are looking to shut down the range units, and to win that air dominance fight. And we also have a cannon here to put the Vampire Coast on a timer. Surely it'll be focusing either the Hulks or Silostra. I'd say the Hulks early on is better, and then moving on to Silostra after is a safer play against an opponent who can dodge. And we do know Legion is proficient in dodging here. And with the match getting underway, we'll see how the players play this out. There's not much skirmishing, so we have some time to sit back and relax. Does anyone play Norska in a serious game? Right now, not really. A lot of people will play Beastmen or Greenskins, as they're basically a much stronger Norska right now. And we got Rusty in chat. Hello, I hope the bronze tournament was fun for you. For those of you that don't know, this tournament series is split up into 3 different sections. That's right, we got 3 tournaments running at the same time for players of different skill levels. This makes sure that that everything is competitive for everyone, and overall is generally, generally a good time for all players involved, hopefully. But as we actually have things getting underway now, we're seeing the artillery picking off those animated Hulks really nicely. They're not stealthed either, like the Morngulls, so that's going to be pretty rough, but only 300 gold worth of value so far. The archers, a much bigger threat, and the silver bullets firing at the Hulks, getting only a little bit of damage. These deck droppers too getting poked down by these huntsmen, and some bats are moving in. Now, very important, the Empire Knights, if they charge the bats, they're going to go down really quickly. So the Vampire Coasts only have a limited amount of time here. Some more Knights ready to charge down the bats, and over here, these fell bats getting charged square on by the Knights. That's going to be really rough for them. Animated Hulks going down too. And for the frontline engagement, the bombers are getting pretty good value. Volkmar, oh my goodness, there we go. The pole arms going down to less than half HP in 1 second. This is why Volkmar is so great here. And a little bit of a stalled engagement on the right flank of the Empire. Meanwhile, Fellbats are down. Huntsmen firing in on the deck droppers. It seems like they fared quite well there. But these bats now shutting down the artillery. Slow choice for the Knights there. And Silostra, like I said, she's going to be summoning these damn Knights Errant to shut down the range units. This is going to be really nice for the coast, and this is their point to come back. You're seeing a huge engagement on the archers on the right flank by the dogs, and the animated Hulks are diving in now. Burning Head does drop though, hitting the pole arms and another unit of pole arms too. But overall, it seems like the Empire frontline still taking quite a bit of damage. The single unit of Flagellants though, don't count them out. At 40 models, they'll still be able to grind down undead for quite a while as long as those bombers are down. And the routing units, it's going to be super important that the Vampire Coast manages to chase them off. If these guys rally, all of it will be for naught, as they'll be able to really shut down Silostra in the late game. But it seems like the bombers are doing a good job at that. The dogs sacrificing themselves to stay in combat here. They will be going down unless they get a heal, and it seems like no heal for them. The Knights though getting terror routed by Silostra. That's a good play for the coast. But I still don't know if they can take down Volkmar. The lower Silostra gets on HP, the scarier it's gonna be for Vampire Coast in the late game. And the Knights are beginning to disintegrate. It's a rough loss for the Vampire Coast, but not before they finish off the silver bullets. The dogs look like they will be able to finish that off too, and potentially killing the archers also. But the artillery is back, and that's probably where the biggest source of damage into Silostra is right now. This Hammer of the Witch is a really nice tool here for the Vampire, or for the Empire, Gonna be getting in a lot of damage with no real units to really shut it down. The bats are preoccupied. And in the center, we're seeing this pocket over here winning against the zombie summons. They're going to be able to start moving out and shutting down the ranged units for the Vampire Coast. Xylostra really low on HP 2 now, and a fireball even dropping on top of her. It looks like the focus is beginning. Volkmar pressuring the fleet captain, and if she gets knocked down, she can't throw down a heal on Xylostra. Even getting taken out for a ride, she's going to be getting pushed across the map. You'll see this sometimes with chariots. But the bombers do finally shut down the Hammer of the Witches. However, it doesn't really matter as the Vampire Coast hits army losses. The Empire, with a ton of infantry and knights left, gonna be taking the win. Blood Penguin, really nice Empire play there in this match. I think the animated Hulks probably not getting as much value as Legion was hoping for either. And like we said, the Hammer of the Witches, one of the most brutal tools ever if left unaffected. The dogs really weren't able to dive in on it, and from there Blood Penguin was able to take the victory. Some nice value on the range units too. Volkmar doing quite well despite how short the game was. And that's gonna be it. Blood Penguin gonna be moving on to the next round in the tournament, up against, I believe, the legendary Even Star. Oh boy, let's take a look at this screenshot over here. You can invite Even Star. There we go. He's gonna be moving on up. Meanwhile, in the bottom bracket, Houseplant moving on to the finals. Interested to see how well they do. But yeah, what a beast. What a beast. Good Empire play. A faction that I really wish we would see more of, as they are such a nice generalist faction. But unfortunately, they don't have too many strong matchups. We got Rusty. Oh, Rusty, you won again. What a bad lad. You need to play more ladder to get out of bronze. Maybe. Yeah, that's really nice, man. I am so excited to see you and your journey through multiplayer. You've been doing good, man. You've been doing real good. Can't wait to play Cathay, says Dovahkiin. Oh boy, yeah, Cathay. One of my very highly anticipated factions, along with Chaos Dwarves and the Ogre Kingdoms. Let's not forget Tzeentch too. I'm gonna say Tzeentch is pretty exciting. He's pretty exciting. I'm ready to try him out. Too bad we gotta wait like forever. But we'll get him eventually. When it is done. And I'm happy that CA isn't, pushing the programmers too hard and letting them have that extra time. All right. Let's see. Vampirates, greater than anything else, though. Ah, yes, the good old Vampire Coast. I love him. All right. What else do we got in chat? We got more conversation with Rusty. The Chad Bronze League, winning those tournaments. AC Maiden, by the way, will be providing your prize because Legion, having won a bounty, decided to donate his prize to the Bronze League. Very generous of him for sure. All right, at Enticity. Probably someone asked already. That's fine. I'm here to answer the same question over and over. But what factions are you personally looking for in Game 3 the most? Ah, well, I already answered. Wonderful. Yes, that's right. Ogre Kingdoms and Chaos Dwarves are by far the two highest factions that I'm looking forward to. After that, probably Cathay, as I love my defensive armies. And Tzeentch, too, because he has flamethrowers. And any faction with a ton of ranged is a faction that I enjoy. So as long as the ranged firepower is there, I'll be happy. You think Ogre Kingdoms will be very hard to implement because of anti-large mechanics? You say that. We had an Ogre Kingdom tournament, and I think the ogres dominated pretty hard, right? Does someone remember? Does someone remember this tournament? Also, it's getting really hot. 1 second. But yeah, does someone remember the Ogre Kingdoms tournament? I think they did well. I only remember one game from that tournament, which was the one where they kited out the dwarves. But if they're, you know, if they're cheap enough, it seems like they'll do. It seems like they will do. Can't wait for Chaos Dwarves. You need that best in setting artillery. Oh my goodness, yes. Chaos Dwarves in campaign. Gonna be amazing, but I think they're coming out as a DLC by the looks of it, based on the predictions of everyone else. So I think Chaos Dwarves, probably we won't be getting them for even longer, but you know, we'll have other factions to enjoy in the meantime. Painkiller Sing. I think Khorne is underrated. He looks awesome. I think yeah, Khorne is pretty. I think he's good. Even in multiplayer too, with a chariot artillery piece. That's a pretty good save. If vampire counts can get away with no range units, Khorne will be able to do well with one. Plus, I think he has a lot of fast units too, which will be quite good for sure, making sure that he doesn't get kited out. As long as he has enough fast mobile furies, I think he'll be okay. Yes, I do like my kite indeed. Tzeentch, gonna be it. Shields are huge, but how will the capture point system affect that? The capture point system really could muck things up quite a bit. Kislev don't seem to get much love from the streamers now that Cathay and Tzeentch have been revealed. I wonder if they're too similar to Empire. I feel like probably not, especially since they have different lores of magic that will presumably be very different from what the Empire have. Khorne greater than Khorne? I think so. I think we can all agree with that. Ogres will be fine versus anti-large because they negate charge defense. Yes, that too. That too. And you know, if the prices are really, it comes down to the gold cost. Let's be honest here. Having more of a unit is enough to defeat a hard counter. You know, like yeah, that's what it really comes down to, right? You just need a lot of a unit. It does seem like they might get kited though, based on the tournament that I hosted. So I'm interested to see what their ranged options actually look like. Same with their skirmishers. Death metal flamethrower bikes for no reason. Yeah, that is true. I think the motorcycle sounds a little bit weird in the trailer for Khorne, but I'm sure once we're actually playing the game, we'll be able to get over it. Capture point system. You want this thing to never come true. Wow, Dr. Jellyfish. We got some strong opinions here. At the very least, we'll have the different game modes. So if it sucks, we'll be able to host classic multiplayer tournaments like this one. It will kill Total War competitively. You like it? Wait, like it will kill Warhammer Total War competitively. I don't know. I feel like it won't. I feel like we'll be fine. Any shampoo recommendations? I have no idea. I use the cheapest shampoo. My game just crashed. let me contact the players real quick, guys. At even star at Blood Penguin. 1 sec. Game crashed. Coming back in. Okay. We should be fine. But yeah, no shampoo recommendations. The cheapest one. I don't know. I have no idea. Participating in a BBB tournament. Let's see. Gotta bully them with your pro skills. I'd be excited to see that. Tzeentch at work because I put ogres before his faction. Yeah, we will be able to stomp out those cults though. Alright, and we're coming back into the game. No delay in the slightest. You're surprised that you used the cheapest one since your hair looks silky smooth. Wow, thank you very much, Lux. Although that is mostly genetics, I will say. In terms of hair maintenance, I have been blessed by the chaos gods to have you know, just nice hair, I guess. But yeah, it does need like a little bit of maintenance, but overall, it's not something I pay attention to a whole ton. Also, I'm sure the fact that the camera is slightly blurry helps me a little bit. Even Star vs. Blood Penguin, that should be awesome. I'm very excited. Get back. Alright. Are we getting Skaven vs. Beastmen? Oh my gosh. We're getting Skaven vs. Beastmen. Now, this is the matchup. This is the matchup that has changed a lot over the last few patches. We've seen Skaven get a lot of tools for kiting, as that is generally what they do now against the Beastmen. And we have the Beastmen mostly just doing the same old, same old. They have their monsters, you know, they rush, they can go mobility, but they don't have to, they have to be a bit worried now, since if they go for a full box buster, you're gonna see things like Chaos Spawn getting kited out into oblivion. Wolf Rats, gonna be quite scary indeed. So overall, I think Skaven actually have a pretty decent chance here. I would say, you know, based on my general knowledge, between 40% to 60% win rate. If it was a random pairing between people at the highest level, I'm not entirely sure, but definitely one I want to see played. Luck saying you're being modest. I feel like I took a good chunk of you know, of ego there to say that you know, to say that I do feel like I got some pretty nice hair maintenance, but I reject that notion. I'll say I'm being realistic. Ponytail when? Hey, if you check out my older streams, you'll see it. Back when I had really long hair, but having it trimmed down is really nice because, you know, my hair isn't gonna be wet for like 3 hours after I take a shower, so that's a nice blessing. A duel of the animal men. I know this is a very exciting matchup, one that I really want to see played. I feel like this matchup, the meta is still developing, because you have some people that will still leave it open, and you'll have other people that are willing to play it. So until someone manages to really settle the debate in this matchup, it really depends. It really depends on you know, on how it pans out. Towels exist. Oh, I don't know what towels you're using, Viking, but you know, it's a lot harder than you would expect. Do you have long hair? Have you experienced the torture? It's a bit. It is quite a bit. You know, I just sit there with a hair dryer for like 5 minutes, just getting through all the different layers until it finally dries up a bit. You think it's a very skill-focused matchup? I think so too. There's a couple builds that will hard counter each other, where skill will have much less of an impact. But especially when it comes to kiting, this matchup, it's gonna be a lot of skill, because you have the Beastmen trying to catch the Skaven, and you have the Skaven just barely keeping distance away. Both factions are very fast, and both of them have a lot of damage. So there's a ton going on. There's, you know, overall not too much cheese either, despite the Skaven. So very, very excited, and it looks like both players are ready. We are loading on into the game. This is gonna be a good one. I accidentally hit F9, which mutes myself, but we're back. Preach. Well, long-ish. Okay, well, maybe I've misjudged Viking, but I don't know. I've never been able to get a towel to fully dry off. It's always been a hair dryer. Their leaders also have horns. That is true. Both factions very, very horny. I shouldn't have gone for that. That was terrible. The Horned Rat basically cosplays the Chaos Gods. Yes, that too. That too. We both got two factions that aren't really exactly fully beloved by the Chaos Gods, but yeah. Sort of the off Chaos factions, right? Because we got proper Chaos, and then we have Beastmen and Skaven. Sort of pseudo-chaotic. But let's see what we have for both players here. For the Forces of Evenstar, one of the best players in the world, has won many a competitive tournament, coming in with Storm Vermin ×3. Council Guard 2, really nice unit. We got a single entity squad, Plague Priest, Assassin, Deathmaster Snicketch, very standard here, and Snicketch coming in with his debuff ability. Gonna be -10 melee defense, -4 leadership. Quite big indeed. We'll make sure he's hitting basically every target he decides to attack. Clan Rat Spears, lots of anti-large warp grinders. Poison Wind Mortars. Yeah, Mortars, Globadiers, and Rat Ogres. It is gonna be a defensive sort of melee focused build. And sort of different from what you usually see from a defensive Skaven formation. It looks like Evenstar looking to play extremely tightly here with a lot of layers of defense for very few units of troops. Just Poison Wind Mortars and the Globadiers. Now, sorry. Oh, geez, sorry. Now, these guys, a little bit vulnerable to things like Traitor Kin, a little bit vulnerable to things like Spirit Leech, but Spirit Leech much less common in Beastmen nowadays. So I'm really wondering how this will pan out. Manticores are going to be great here, though. We got 2 of them. There's nothing to really shut them down. So they're going to be diving in. And it's just the infantry that'll take them out. A couple chariots too, nice for late game against those storm vermin. Centaurs on the flanks, not a ton of them, which is going to be helping out the Beastmen a lot. If he had, if Blood Penguin had committed too much on the mobility front, he would have really had a rough time breaking into the box. And speaking of boxes, look at this formation here. Look at this. That is a nice formation. I like it. Defended on all fronts, tiny gaps all around. Nothing really too much to really worry about. Nice and 200 meters away from the white line like we like to see it. And really defended units. Now, what are we seeing from the Beastmen in terms of lords and casters? We got some lag, but this is Torox the Brass Bull coming in fully kitted out. Now, interesting thing about Torox, you don't always want to take all of his abilities. Specifically, Rune of Tortured Axes. It only recharges when you're in melee, so it takes a while to actually kick in. Or was it Slaughterer's Call? I think it's whichever one is the ability, you don't want to be running that. And I think it is the Rune of Tortured Axes. It takes a while to actually kick in, so you usually don't see that. The Blood Beast, too, doesn't do that much damage, so people usually won't run that either. But it seems like, for Blood Penguin, going for Torox this time to try and win. And yeah, try to really hard carry with him here this time around. We'll see how well he does. The mortars firing away. Good dodging by the cavalry, but some of them are getting hit here. And the balance of power is in the favor of the Beastmen. I did a video on this recently, and it's because their passive abilities. The passives are going to be giving them extra CP, making them seem like they're much bigger than they actually are. But overall doesn't actually have an impact on the battle. What does have an impact though, Snickage snaring the Bray Shaman of Beasts, doing a lot of damage there right off the get-go. But the Assassin potentially out of position. Manticore Summon 2 landing, misses Snickage. He manages to slip just barely out of that, and the Manticore instead diving in on the Assassin. Now, it is imperative that the Beastmen are knocking the Assassin away from the box, but it seems like the Chariots move over him, not slowing down enough, and he is going to get pinned down in this situation. A little bit closer to the box than the Beastmen would have hoped. Storm Vermin managed to get engaged, and the mortars are firing in, but it's a bit of a bad trait to hit your own Storm Vermin, and they do. Gonna be getting in a bit of damage there. Dogs diving in on the Skaven Slaves. Nice play there. They want to be diving in onto the back line. One of the units of Harpies, though, now routing off. Rat Ogres ready to probably support, but how is the Assassin doing? He has been tanking quite a bit of damage. Actually, still at full HP, despite all odds. I guess just the Manticores missing their attacks. Very unfortunate for the Beastmen. And it's going to be a wind spell, just clipping a few units here. Getting in a bit of extra damage. But the Bray Shaman of Beast still taking quite a bit of damage. But the Assassin finally getting taken down. But look at this over here. The back line of the Skaven getting engaged on. The mortars are going down, but at the cost of the Centaurs. Centaurs are going to get surrounded by Rat Ogres and Skaven. And they're going to be routing off the battlefield, having to disengage now. And over here, we're seeing the reserve mobility coming on in to try and make a play. Snickage, too, getting terror routed by I guess, a Manticore? Yes, he gets terror routed by the Manticore. And that's really bad for the Skaven forces here. They do not want to lose their leadership. The Assassin getting chased off by the dogs, too. And the Plague Priest taking insane damage from Torox. Looks like he will be getting his buffs soon, not just yet. And the Storm Vermin, they do manage to save Snickage, but they are extremely out of position here, and the mobility could really ruin things. Torox Wow, did he just annihilate that Plague Priest? But the Globadiers getting a really nice volley on the Centaurs. They're going to be taking a lot of damage here as they try to find a safer position, but still, definitely they don't want to take volleys on those Globadiers, and it looks like they will still be online and operational. Potentially a nice way for the Skaven to come back in this battle, but their caster is down, and it is just Snickich here against Taurox. Now, Taurox, he's going to be getting snared. He does not get his charge bonus. He gets surrounded by Storm Vermin, but he has his Brass Body. Really nice play, saving that Brass Body when it counts. Taurox now going to be fighting Snickich along with the Manticore. I think this is going to be really bad for Deathmaster Snickich. A Terror Route could also drop on those Storm Vermin, and that would be extremely bad. Meanwhile, the Beastmen Archers are still doing pretty good, and Taurox not taking a lot of damage from Snickich. If you take a look at the melee attack, it's 70 against Taurox's 61 melee defense. That means Snickich, he's only going to be hitting every other attack, and if he's constantly getting knocked down, he's barely going to be hitting at all. And that's a Terror Route on Snickich, a Terror Route on the Clan Rat, proper break 2, and the Beastmen balance of power now going pretty well into their favor. Taurox coming in to finish off the Rat Ogres too, and he is fully buffed up. 78 melee attack on Taurox, over 500 weapon strength, most of that being armor piercing, nearly 600. If you take a look at the HP of Snickich, one hit from Taurox can actually rip his face off. Definitely quite scary indeed, but maybe we don't even need Taurox to finish that off, as the Manticore gonna be finishing him off here along with the Chariots. Taurox potentially going in for the death blow of the Skaven. If Snickich goes down, it will surely be army losses, but even start tapping out instead as the battle is over. What a vicious fight there. I think just a single entity squad getting taken out along with Taurox annihilating that Plague Priest really was the big play there. If you look at the Poison Wind units, they did really well for themselves, but I think they got a bit too much friendly fire on the Storm Vermin. You can see they got a lot of, they didn't do a lot of damage, actually. And it's because they were suffering from those terror routes that were happening so often. In fact, this was a pretty classic Beastmen build, sort of laying off on the mobility. This was generally a strong build against the Skaven too. So overall, pretty rough. The Manticores diving directly onto units so that the Warp Grinders couldn't get their value. And just a nice dismantling of that Skaven box for sure. So pretty good. Blood Penguin showing Evenstar a little bit of bringing on a little bit of worry, as he does manage to take one game. Doesn't mean that the match is over just yet. We still have possibly 2 more to go. So we'll see if Blood Penguin manages to win this out. It would be a pretty big, oh, I'm so sorry, pretty big win to take out Evenstar in this tournament. Blood Penguin going for the throat. Now going Bretonia and Chaos. Pretty good pick. Pretty good pick. We saw this earlier in his match against Legion. Will Evenstar go for something like a Vampire Coast pick? I feel like that is quite scary against both factions. We do know that Chaos can win against a dreaded Vampire Coast Kite, but it turns the matchup into a bit of a coin flip situation if you decide to hard counter, that is. So honestly, I'm not too sure how well that would really pan out for Evenstar. Is that something that he wants to play at? Perhaps. Maybe you could go Coast and go for a bit of the mind games action. Or maybe he has another matchup that he's looking to play. For example, Undead Vampire Counts against Bretonia. Very even matchup. We may see that for sure. And like clockwork, Vampire Counts gets picked. Very likely going to be a Bretonia pick. And once again, we'll have to see if Blood Penguin manages to win it out. He's playing Bretonia. Blood Penguin going for the same style, presumably, as last time. But he has to know Evenstar might have seen his previous match, as it was being streamed. Perfectly fine for Evenstar to scout that out too. And the question is, does Blood Penguin have multiple builds for Bretonia? Is he just going for a single counter, or does he have a little bit of a mix-up? We'll have to see. Right. That's right, the goats take this one. But the true winner, as always, is Corn. You think he'll go Dark Elves? Strangely enough, no Dark Elves this time. Going for a classic Vampire Counts pick. I am excited to see how this plays out. This matchup in particular, not one that I've practiced a lot, so I myself will be learning a bit too as we go ahead and watch this. Definitely quite excited to see how it plays out. Ooh boy. Now Even Star, I would guess, and I don't see his army right now, so no spoilers. I would guess probably maybe an air squad type of play. But for Blood Penguin, I really wonder if he has a separate build. You think Snickich is an assassin on a level not even himself knows when he dies? Actually, when it comes to Warhammer, like, I think that line more or less checks out. Warhammer is so bombastic that I would not be surprised if that was canon. You think the true winner is Tzeentch? Maybe Tzeentch. He does enjoy his mind games, you know. But when it comes to Warhammer and the battles, I feel like Slaanesh sort of misses out on a lot of the action. Slaanesh is more of a you know. Of course, there is always like the people that are truly committed to the war, to battle, and so on. But yeah, Slaanesh misses out a bit. Nurgle, more of a campaign type player. Nurgle likes his his slow burnouts of armies instead of the battle too, or maybe a post-battle type of guy. He likes post-battle analysis. Tzeentch planned it all for sure. Indeed. Even his own losses, all part of the plan. All part of the plan. Blood, I know, except if it's undead versus undead. Khorne, he misses out on a lot of blood when you see that type of fight. You know, plus a lot of the magic flying around, definitely not his cup of tea. But you know, maybe he derives a little bit of enjoyment from the undead killing each other, as I'm sure some of us do. In fact, you know what? If I had to put chat in place, I would say Khorne is probably where chat lies. You know, we're all here to see a little bit of blood. We don't like seeing undead mirrors. I think that's more or less how it plays out. Come to think of it, you really want to play a Nurgle army. I'm so excited to see those mechanics soon, right? Hopefully soon. They've covered Tzeentch and Cathay. What's left is Nurgle and Slaanesh. That is going to be so exciting when those mechanics finally drop. Now, for the undead forces for today, coming in for championship winner Evenstar, we're going to see 2 Vargheists, 2 Felbats. Indeed, it is going to be an air style of play this time. 2 units of Blood Knights, and in the air we see a Von Karstein, Dragon Lord, Vampire Lord, my bad. Not a Lord of Dragons, he has no Imric, but he does have Storm of Night to make sure that any air game for the Bretonnians gets shut down. Gonna be a pretty humble infantry line though, only 2 units of Graveguard Great Weapon units, and mostly focusing on these Blood Knights to trade out well. For Blood Penguin, we're seeing a similar build to last time, but a single unit of Pegasus Knights. This may be his downfall, as these Pegasus Knights, without if they get hit by that Tempest, they are going to die quite quickly. They only have 4,500 HP, higher than the other, or what's it? Pegasus Knights versus, I think this is a cheaper one, right? So, anyways, they're going to be taking a lot of damage. They don't want to get hit by the Tempest at all, and they're going to have to hang back quite a bit. There are still quite a few Knights here on the ground. We got some ROR Knights for the Knights Errant, and also the ROR Questing Knights and Lights of the Lionhearted Knights. Knights of the Realm, so many Knights, as they come in with the magic damage. Overall, not too important here, but pretty nice army for the Bretonnians, but I wonder if they'll be able to win against the Blood Knights. The classic play here that you see for the Vampire Counts, they charge in with the Blood Knights and then charge in the back with the Vargheists. Without being able to cycle charge, Bretonnia will have a very hard time indeed And for the Pegasus Knights, they're hanging back. Definitely a safe play. Looks like they're going to be moving in to potentially cover that right flank of the undead. Good luck, have fun for both players being sent out. And the hero squad is going to be probably the scariest thing for the vampire counts. They will be able to swing the fight in the Bretonians' favor, basically wherever they decide to engage. Archers firing 2. Nice damage on the Fellbats, but not hitting the Vargeists. And the front line puts the Bretonians on the clock. Graveguard Great Weapons will win over the course of the battle. So that puts Bretonia, it means that they have to make a play. Vampire counts really just have to avoid damage from the peasant bowmen, and there we go. Storm of the Night gonna be dropping, already down almost 1,000 damage as these guys are getting into melee. But that's it, just 1,000 damage. They're gonna be getting healed up, and there's still 18 models. Vampire counts committing in the air. Look like they want to be trying to catch these guys, but are they going to land? It looks like they will, and that puts them in the safe zone. Vampire counts can't land, otherwise they will get charged by the knights, and it looks like they choose not to. So very scary play there for both players. Breath attack dropping. Where's it gonna hit? It looks like directly on top of these knights, taking out about 1/4 of their HP. Nothing game winning, but definitely worth casting. Over here, oh my gosh, the Graveguard get annihilated. Faye Enchantress doing really good there as the Blood Knights try to move in on the right flank. But there is a second unit of Blood Knights. It looks like they're engaged over here in this huge cavalry blob. Definitely wish that he had another breath attack here, but there are spears in the way, and it looks like they will be stopping the Blood Knights just barely from pinning down the cavalry. Nice counter charge here too from the questing knights, and it's going to be a huge engagement now. Faye Enchantress moving on in. Does she have a Dwellers Below? She does, but will she cast it? Does she have the Winds of Magic? Dwellers Below, really good target, really good for targeting down knights because of its damage over time effect, but instead going for the Chalice of Potions. These knights will likely try to disengage, and there we go. Looks like they are attempting to pull out, but a little bit bogged down. We'll see how well that does. Looks like it lands, only a little bit of damage. So both sides with their heavy impact abilities not doing too much, and the Bretonian infantry, they're starting to rout off the battlefield. A really nice play though. The Paladins catching the Lord, getting a lot of damage, and if he goes down, that'd be really bad, but he barely manages to take off into the air. Graveguard providing some mass helping out there, and the Blood Knights are trading quite well now. It seems like they did manage to win in that big cavalry engagement, getting a lot of heals and support, and they've cleaned up a lot of the Bretonian cavalry. I think there's just really the Pegasus Knights left, and the single ROR questing knights. Another breath attack, finishing off the infantry. Not a bad choice, as it means the Blood Knights can move on in, and they're going to be taking out those questing knights quite handily. Which means it's really up to the Bretonians to try and make a big play to catch these guys out. Spell does drop, just a Flock of Doom, not going to do that much damage, but there we go. Finally, the Dwellers Below going to be catching out the Blood Knights. Now, we're going to see a lot of damage here if they do stay in this AoE. It's going to be hurting them quite a bit, but they do get a heal, and that means that they will be surviving decently well. Questing Knights dive on in. They will get a bit of damage, but not enough to crumble down those Blood Knights. And with yet more heals still dropping on top of them, seems like they will be able to survive. One scary thing though is that the Fae Enchantress does still live. She's Mortis engineing all of the Graveguard and all of these zombies over here. But if she does get cycle charged down, that will be the end of her. Another breath attack drops, focusing down the infantry. And you might think, why not breath attack the heroes? It's because cycle charging is going to be finishing them off, and you can only cycle charge if you're not going to get bogged down by infantry. So the Dragon Lord now starting to work down the hero squad here, but the undead are on a timer. If the Fae Enchantress finishes off these guys, that would be quite devastating indeed. And the Blood Knights, meanwhile, they are still pretty healthy, and it seems like they will be able to do quite well here. But another Chalice of Potion does drop. It looks like it will not be hitting the Blood Knights though. So overall, I think the Vampire Counts will be taking the win today. It does, however, hit the Graveguard, and they will be going down, plus a few units of Bretonian infantry do manage to rally. Blood Knights now having to disengage, and the Dragon Lord He does manage to terror out the Fey Enchantress, but the Paladins have been trading in and getting in a lot of damage. If he does get caught up, it would be very scary, but he has a really nice escape path here. Your own infantry doesn't slow you down as much as your opponents. So he does manage to take off a really nice and fast cycle charge too. Really nice play from Evenstar. Misses the charge attack damage though, but still, I think the Dragon Lord will be able to do quite well here unless this Paladin just goes to town. And he will land a couple hits. Fey Enchantress is now routing though, and the balance of power handily in the favor of the undead. Fellbat's gonna do some nice cleanup too. And overall, I really do like this build from the Vampire accounts. It seems like, although a little bit scary, if they had lost the air battle, it would have been very bad indeed. But they did manage to come out on top. And there we go, we are seeing many of the living forces routing off now, with Evenstar taking up the second match. Now moving on to the ace match. Gonna be the first ace match we see today. Blood Knights, of course, doing amazingly here. Dragon Lord doing great too, especially with that Tempest. And the Pegasus Knights still did pretty good, despite having so many air threats. For the Knights though, I think they took a very bad engagement against the Blood Knights. They ended up trading really badly there, having stayed for too long. And the Peasant Bowmen, they got the exact same damage value spread as last time. So for the infantry, they did good, but not as well against the Graveguard. There even were Battle Pilgrims, which I missed, who did manage to do okay. But in the end, Evenstar taking that win. Will he be able to come back in the rubber match? 259 kills on the Blood Knight unit. Quite scary indeed. GG to both players. And now Evenstar has to do the pick 3. Oh boy, what are we expecting here? I think we could see a variety of picks here. Evenstar has not played Beastmen yet, which is a really nice pick in the pick 3. We may see some other undead factions might play to the factions he's comfortable with. I'm not entirely sure. Let's see, Dovahkiin has to go. Peace out, man. Peace out. Of course, there's always the VOD after the tournament is done. But I hope you enjoyed it so far. Some really nice matches so far. For sure, for sure. That's one of the main things that I really enjoy about the Masters League tournament, and sort of having these tournaments spread out into 3. You get to see very even matches even early on in the tournament. Does make it pretty hard for many of the players to win it though, or even get far at all, since it's an uphill battle throughout, but quite exciting, quite exciting. Someone playing Elven faction and I'll be happy. Well, we saw one high elf game. We saw one high elf game earlier today. No, potentially some dark elf picks, though they were not chosen. But maybe we will see some more elves. They're not too uncommon in the meta. Alright, so Evenstar getting those pick 3s ready. And fairly quickly too. Beastmen, Chaos, Dark Elves. Banning the Wood Elves. Wood Elf ban, very strong overall, as they are strong against many factions. Dark Elves, really good. Chaos, very nice generalist faction, along with the Beastmen. I think Evenstar has a pretty nice lineup here. Norska versus Norska. That would be fun. We haven't seen enough Norska recently, and I'm ready to have them back in the fold. They were pretty meta for a pretty long time though, so you know, maybe it's fitting that they take a bit of a back seat for a while. You'll have to go back and watch it later on for sure. For sure, it's a fun one. Alright, and Blood Penguin going Empire as usual, banning Dark Elves. So we're seeing a choice between Beastmen and Chaos. I think overall, as a general statement, I would say Beastmen and Chaos are pretty comfortable versus the Empire. Maybe Beastmen a little bit more comfortable here. This is Blood Penguin's choice though, so he's going to be a little bit more comfortable here playing either matchup, presumably. And I'd be, if I had to guess, I think even Star would go Beastman. And there we go, it is going to be a Beastman pick. And now we can talk about how the matchup actually plays out. Beastmen, a pretty strong faction overall nowadays. They have been fixed, so they're no longer bugged, but overall still quite strong. They have very powerful chariots, and their cavalry is really strong too. Their lore of magic is quite devastating, but I do know Turin does enjoy playing on the Empire side here of this matchup. And I think a few players are pretty comfortable too. You have options to kite, you have options to box. You know, many different generalist Empire playstyles. All of them will work here. And the Beastmen, they have a little bit to worry about. One thing that's really funny too is that Amber Spear, spell that the Empire can run, can annihilate chariots like no one's business because it can hit them twice. So that's something that the Beastmen have to worry about for sure, especially in a situation where they're getting kited down. But overall, Beastmen have been able to handle kite over the years fairly well. And when it comes to Even Star, oh jeez, when it comes to Even Star, he's pretty. He would presumably be ready against many different Empire playstyles. The Vikings think Empire's hard carried by Volkmar these days, indeed. Indeed, we see him a lot. I think a shuffling of the lords would be good, but it is very hard to get a full lord diversity. Just because, you know, if you have two different combat lords, you generally would just take the better one. Although for Empire, you know, you do see Franz, you do see Boris in some situations, so I don't think it's completely lost. Yeah, so I'm more okay with where the Empire Lord options are right now. In terms of Volkmar, though, he's not that hard to counter with the Beastmen. They have a few options to take him out, so it'd be a little bit scary. I'm just gonna grab some water, don't mind me. But yeah, you know, I think it's okay. I think the Beastmen don't have to fear Volkmar as much as they used to. But they do have to account for him. Looking forward to the cavalry patch, same here. Remelding the patches is always really nice, since it's always annoying to have to split the community and so on. Let's see. You think that it's sad that Demogryph Knights have become weak these days? Indeed. Overall, you don't see them too often. There's a lot of really strong abilities you can cast on them. So, yeah, we don't see them too often anymore. I think Empire overall, we could see a bit more of them. You know, give them a few buffs maybe. Polish them up. Get them ready for multiplayer. I don't think that would be too difficult to launch them into the meta. You just don't want to have them be the dominant faction, as overall the community doesn't really enjoy having one faction be the top in a meta. You don't really play multiplayer, but you do love Empire handgunners. So usually for Empire handgunners, you see them in the form of the ROR, the silver bullets. So that does actually mean that they are pretty common here. So maybe we will see them. I only see the Sterling's Revenge though, unfortunately, but let's get into the builds. For the Beastmen, we do see tons of Ungor Herd boosting that balance of power with their passive. 6 of them even. We got some cavalry in the back. Razorgore Herd, really nice against Empire cavalry, as you just send them in and they trade cost effectively due to their rather insane armor-piercing damage values. A couple chariots too, for any mass infantry Empire build, and some Centaur throwing axes. So overall, pretty standard. I think we got Torox here too. Yep, cut down in his abilities. This is the usual kit that you see with him to save a bit of money. And for the caster, Where will he be? There is a forest here, so he does have some safe haven. And he has Traderkin and Viletide. Now, Viletide, I think it did get nerfed. It has a bit of a longer cast time now, I believe. So a bit easier to dodge. But the Traderkin's going to be quite scary indeed. On a Chariot too, he's going to have to stay away from Marcus Wolfheart. Doesn't want to get sniped out. For the Empire, we see Bright Wizard, Burning Head Fireball, very standard Marcus, and the ROR Demogryph Knights. You see these guys for their terror, which is really nice, and it's going to be a mass infantry build for the Empire. Now this is a bit of a strange one. Some war wagons defend, but I'd be a little bit worried as the Empire in this match. Just the tiniest bit worried. The main thing that is problematic here is that they are lacking on cavalry pretty heavily. They only have the Demogryph Knights, and only a couple Traderkins are going to finish them off. Yeah, handgunners are cool, but definitely very difficult to use. They run into a lot of line of sight issues that huntsmen simply don't currently. That's right, war wagons. This is one of the matchups where you see war wagons taken occasionally, specifically championed by Turin, of all people, who really likes using them here, and I would say they're decently effective. Painkiller saying Beastmen have no chance because of the war wagons. Match is over. Let's wrap it up. Let's move on to the finals now. And here we go. Match has started. Match has started. We got the Beastmen moving on up using the forest to advance. Won't really be giving them a huge advantage here. It's just to make sure that they don't get sniped out by any of the Empire forces. A little bit risky had there been an Empire kite, since the kite would have all of this space to kite around in. But still definitely a very safe call when it comes to the Beastmen. Just sort of getting into position here, and Marcus, he's going to be looking for some targets to start shooting. The Vikings saying, you want to bet on that. I'm sure we're just all memeing here. But I wonder if the Empire managed to win it, I definitely would be a little bit surprised. I feel like the Beastmen have a really nice composition here, especially since the Empire infantry, they really have their work cut out for them against chariots. Ant-Man, welcome. Happy to have you back, saying, thank God, if I have to watch the capture of Sacred Site, you might, oh yeah. Yeah, very, very frustrated about capture sites. Yeah, don't worry, we're sticking to mostly Warhammer content here, since it seems like the majority of my audience prefers that over Age of Empires. I'll only be doing Age of Empires very occasionally when I feel like it. Plot twist. I'd be ready. I'd be ready for a big Empire comeback. Lots of moves in chat. Hey, Torok's a brass bull in chat too. Always happy to have you here. But cool. Overall, it's going to be a pretty slow engage. There's going to be a little bit of skirmishing. The war wagons will trade effectively in the early skirmishing phase, but they shouldn't be able to get too much value. Of course, some fireballs could drop too, but nice play by Evenstar to avoid that possible spell cheese, keeping that Brave Shaman of Wild in the forest, behind some trees where he's going to be safe. I think he's on foot too, actually, not on a chariot. Makes him a little bit worse against infantry, but overall nothing too crazy. And the war wagons just continuing to push forwards. They're going to be getting some nice poke value, but this is sort of a sit back and relax sort of situation. Both players vying for position, but neither can really get a whole ton of value for them. A grenade launcher could have been nice here. True, but you have to always say what unit are you going to cut, and would it be good against all different builds? Against this build and slow play style of Evenstar, maybe. But he does have a lot of Razor Gore Herd, and a single Outrider grenade launcher could go down really quickly. And for what? To simply pick off a couple Ungor Herd? Maybe it'd be a little bit risky. Now, Marcus doing a good job sniping out the caster. Fireball coming in too. He's already at half HP, and that's a really nice win for the Demogryph Knights. If this caster goes down, Demogryph Knights are going to do quite well. Another shot from Marcus. Lining it up. Fires away. Ooh, and that's another quarter life off the Brave Shaman. That's really nice for the Empire. Another shot from Marcus. Barely dodged by turning around and running away. Had he obeyed his orders, he would have gotten shot in the face, but Marcus landing, missing that shot, I think. And now in for a bit of a rough time. He's going to have to kite back, and he will. We'll bring him into safety. Meanwhile, Royal Altdorf Griffites pulling back to a safer position. War Wagons still trading out against the mobility of the Greenskins and a net just to get Marcus to safety. Not a lot of value generated here aside from making sure that Marcus doesn't get his face ripped off by Taurox. But the main fight is underway. We got a lot of chariots here, but the Demogryph Knights move in, and oh my gosh, that's a big burning head. That is a pretty good burning head. We see one of the Ungors terror routing, the Razorgore herd rampaging, these guys almost rampaging too, and that is a pretty big play. But Marcus getting gooned out by Taurox, gonna be a little bit scary for the Empire. If Marcus goes down, that's a huge hit to the leadership of their infantry, and the Demogryph Knights already pretty beat up here. Seems like they took a lot of damage, not sure from what, and the Bray Shaman coming back in the last quarter of the game, gonna be landing that devastating Traderkin right on top of the Demogryph Knights, overcast too. You can tell because of the miscast there. And that's going to be getting a lot of damage. Already killed off 5 models of Demogryph Knights, but running for the hills, and the Demogryph Knights get a huge charge on Taurox. That was a huge Traderkin, but was it enough? The balance of power sort of even for both players now, and Taurox took a lot of damage there. Had the Demogryph Knights not taken that Traderkin though, it would have been really, really decisive for the Empire, but now it's a little bit scary. Their infantry is holding up really well though, and the War Wagons are focusing down Taurox. The Demogryph Knights charging him in the back too, getting some really nice value, but the Bray Shaman is still on the battlefield. He could very well throw down another Traderkin, and that would actually finish off the Demogryph Knights, but oh my gosh, Taurox getting terror routed by a couple of big birds. That is going to be rough. A net drops too. And Taurox going to be pinned down, trying to get focused down by the Demogryph Knights. Will he actually rout? It looks like he won't. But the Manticore getting engaged on by the Demogryph Knights now. Really rough. And oh my gosh, before the Bray Shaman could cast another Traderkin, he gets shattered off the battlefield. But Marcus, a little bit exposed, gets hit by Taurox. It's a duel of the very injured lords. They're trying to do well, but a fireball hits Taurox in the back. A huge volley from the War Wagons, and Taurox is looking to rout. They both rout at the same time. The leadership for both sides here running off, and Taurox falls on the ground, defeated. That's going to be a huge leadership loss for the Beastmen. Plus, because the caster routed off, the Demogryph Knights are going to hold just barely by the skin of their teeth, terror routing everything. And oh my gosh, so many different ways this game could have gone based on a little bit of how the units routed off here. Marcus getting finished off by the Centaurs, but it's going to take a while for him to actually go down, as he does still have a decent amount of HP in the distance here. Great swords, a little bit out of position, but it seems like the Demogryph Knights at 7 models left and 500 HP. They're barely going to keep it together. Centaurs look like they might get routed off too, and they do. Marcus Wolfhart with 300 HP, going to be just barely surviving here, but the Beastmen trying to pull back the game. The Centaurs are going to be moving in to try and finish him off, but one of the chariots gets sniped out by a fireball en route. They dive in to the War Wagons, but Marcus, with the killer shot, takes out almost 2 Razorgore chariots, or 2 Tuskgore chariots actually, with one shot as he rallies, ending the battle and surviving. Blood Penguin, you madman, you absolute madman, you took out Evenstar. Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Painkiller, you should have taken the bet. You could have won money from the Viking. What a match! What a match! Huge sniping plays on the caster, taking him out early. He only got 1 cast, but 700 gold value despite that. And the focus fire on Taurox. Beautiful, beautiful play. One more hit on Marcus would have ended it. One more Traderkin on the Demogryph Knights would have ended it. But living by the skin of their teeth, the Empire managed to win the battle. And despite bringing 3 units of great swords, I would not have expected it by any means, but what a match! What a match! GG! Oh my god, what a game! What a game! Oh my gosh! I know, right? I don't think any of us was really expecting that. But Blood Penguin showing some pretty good play today. He's defeated Legion and Evenstar, and now going up against the one and only, the deadliest plant in the world, Houseplant from Clan RTK. He's going to be going and facing up against him. Let's see if we can go ahead and update the bracket here and see how these how this climactic finals actually plays out. Oh my gosh, Blood Penguin, what a terror. What an absolute terror. Let's go ahead and quickly rejoin the lobby just so that we don't crash. And then see how this plays out. Where is that match? Oh my goodness. Man, Blood Penguin. I am so excited to see him win the tournament today. What a beast. What a beast. Some really nice games today for sure. But RTK Houseplant, we haven't seen him play in the tournament today. He could be on a rampage right now, and we simply would not know it. Gonna be facing off against Blood Penguin, defeater of champions, hunter of champions, more like it. Oh boy, winning with Empire of all factions twice today. Houseplant saying, always a pleasure to see the Empire come through, watching the games for sure. Man, triple greatswords, Sterling's Revenge, and Royal Altdorf Griffites. Talk about fresh builds, I know. And that's what I really love about Warhammer. You get to see new builds coming on up. It's not just rote, same thing every time. You get a lot of different stuff. Painkiller saying, if Houseplant goes to a university, he can become Dr. Houseplant. Saying, I regret nothing after that. Oof. Oof. Oh boy. Alright, but memes aside, we got the finals cast. The players are fighting off against each other for the grand $25 Canadian, slightly less valuable than American, but nevertheless fighting for about a DLC's worth of cash money. And of course, the glory of winning these tournaments, along with qualifying for the grand finals later in the season. It's gonna be pretty competitive. These guys gonna be some of the best players on the ladder right now. They've been grinding it out, playing a ton of games over the past 3 weeks. We'll see if all of that practice comes to bear. With Blood Penguin playing the Bretonians and Chaos classic counterpick. This seems to be his favorite setup here. But what will Houseplant do to counter this time? We've seen a couple different options here. And by a couple, I mean it's been vampire counts both times. Will we see it again? Maybe. Maybe we will. Man, Blood Penguin going for the living factions. Not even playing the Beastmen. Except for that one time when he did as a counter. But still, Bretonia and Empire. You gotta respect a man that plays Bretonia and Empire. Yes, it was Sterling's Revenge. Yep. It wasn't the Silver Bullets. Plague's Empire is always nice to watch. You played a couple Skaven Empire matchups with him. Probably the funniest matchups in the game. I wish I could see those games, man. I wish I could see them. I'm sure they were epic. Man. We're on Mortis Wastes, by the way. If you want to see the map without spoiling armies, that is the map. It's a large and flat map. Pretty good for any faction that wants to kite. Pretty good for any artillery-based factions in the game. Oh my gosh, and Houseplant going for the dwarves. Going for the dwarves. What is going on? All right, now, we did speculate. The dwarves, they are good against Bretonia. They're good against Chaos, in theory. So, not a bad pick. One of the problems with the dwarves, though, they run into some issues against higher level players. It's very difficult to get your value with dwarves, and you need very specific builds to do well with them. Many players in the game with better attack timings will do better against the Dwarves vs. Empire. Not this time, unfortunately, but a lot of players with stronger attack timings can basically play so well that no matter how well the dwarves micro, they can't squeeze a lot of value out of their units. They don't have cavalry, and they just have to defend their range units to get value. So the upper limit of how well you can manage the dwarves, it is there. And the question is whether or not your opponent can play above that limit and defeat the Proud Dowie. Of course, there's a little bit of RNG too, which will help in many situations, but overall, it really depends on how well Blood Penguin can take an engagement and mitigate value. That sounds not very intelligent. Well, it's Dwarves versus Chaos. It's Dwarves versus the Chaos. There's also a couple shenanigans that the Dwarves can do with manual fire, which is pretty nice. Their Slayers are really good at defending the back line. And if they go for the right build, Houseplant might be able to win it. It should be very, very scary for Blood Penguin. As for the Chaos, usually you'll see a couple units of Chariots, sometimes the more expensive ones, because of that sweet, sweet armor-piercing value. Occasionally, you will see something like, well, I don't know. Occasionally, you'll see, Axe Thrower Horsemen. They are definitely very good. You want a couple units of Horsemen to kill Slayers, and Sartorial, probably one of the most meta lords in this matchup. You take him for his final transmutation to rip apart those boxes like no tomorrow. And then after that, he cycle charges units down. He's unbreakable. He's fast enough to avoid Slayers. He's a pretty scary bird indeed. For other options, though, there could be Sigvald. Sigvald is really good for killing the single entities of the dwarves, as he has perfect vigor. He has insane combat stats, and his melee defense is so high, many units only have like a 15% chance of actually landing hits on him. So, since he's been buffed, he's been in the meta here too. Glorious Feeder confirming. Saying Sigvald isn't bad here either, for sure. So, overall, I think Chaos have a lot of options. Bluebird goes Burr. Oh my gosh, when Kairos Fate Weaver. Have you seen his AoEs? I am so excited to play him. I'm so excited. Fatty Knight saying, when I, a noob, had a really close Lizardmen vs Dwarf matchup against Grombrindle, the player, you realized how poor dwarves are right now. Yeah, it can be really rough. When both sides sort of know how to play the matchup, and they both have the right builds, generally I would say it's not in the favor of the dwarves. And you see it because most people aren't picking dwarves as a counter most of the time. But this time we do. And for the dwarves, we are seeing a hero squad. Master Engineer on foot. Thorek on foot. What does he have? It looks like he has his two, he has one of his, no! He doesn't have the melee attack buff, which means that the hero squad will have a much harder time hitting Sigvald. Of course, a 3v1, as much as Sigvald enjoys that, he will be losing it. There is a Rune of Wrath and Ruin too, just a bit of extra damage there. It can sometimes pay for itself if the battle goes long enough. Meanwhile, we also have a Master Engineer, Flash Bomb. This will help against Sigvald much more, but its limited duration is what hurts it. 16 seconds means at best, you land 3 attacks in only. Between the 3 units, that's only 9 hits on Sigvald, and that is not a ton of damage. The Thane, however, will be helping, and it seems like he's brought the Fire Weakness rune. So everything here is basically a troll, as we all are, and that's going to be pretty nice. It will be boosting the rune of Wrath and Ruin, plus the blasting charges. Going to be helping out a tiny bit against the infantry, but overall probably won't get more than like 100, maybe a couple hundred gold worth of value in the best case scenario. Cannons could potentially do really well here though, as there is a ton of infantry support. We even have Ulthar's Raiders with some Thunderers to push back the chariots, presumably. For Chaos, we do indeed have chariots, normal ones instead of the more expensive armor-piercing ones. Still not a bad choice. We got 3 units of horsemen throwing axes, but there's no slayers for them to target down. Instead, they'll likely be focusing down the cannon, but they have to keep away from these thunderers, so the damage may be mitigated until the front line gets engaged. Other than that, it's going to be Chaos Marauders into the horizon with some Chaos Warrior support. Actually, mostly Chaos Warrior support. We got 5 of them with great weapons, and Oh my gosh, look at this. You can tell by their thinner ranks. We got chosen with great weapons. They have much fewer models, but they take no damage from blasting charges. They're going to be the main hammer of the Chaos forces here. Their only threat being the said Thunderers and Ulthar's Raiders. If they do not go down, the Dwarves will surely be in for a rough fight. And we also have a Chaos Sorcerer, Lord of Metal, instead of Sigvald. An interesting choice, but does save a lot of money. They'll be able to do well to, let's see. He has Plague of... No. He has an interesting kit here. He has Transmutation of Lead. Now this reduces the damage of units, but usually Chaos wants to be dealing damage. What it is good for, though, is that it will debuff the hero squad so that they can't do anything against the Chosen. And he also has Searing Doom, which will do well against many of the range units for the Dowie. Some nice dodging too from the chariots, narrowly avoiding a cannon shot. It's very important that you keep them high on HP, as late game chariots are so important. They can win you the game even if they have 300 HP left. And by dodging these cannon shots early, it ensures that there's a much higher chance that they'll be able to survive. Another cannon shot does come in, takes out a single Marauder horseman. This poor guy getting shot right off his horse. It looks like his friend getting taken out too. Very unfortunate for them. But one horse does manage to run off into the distance. Good for it. Run free, little horse. Run into the desert. It's gonna die. It's gonna die. Oh, poor thing. But nevertheless, cannons still getting some pretty nice value against the horsemen. They have to position quite far away as the Thunderers are getting into range. It looks like they're squaring up. Will they get a volley off? It seems like that's a no. It seems like it's going to be a no, but they will be able to ward off the horsemen for quite a bit longer. But if you take a look at the infantry lines, they're sitting pretty comfortable. Blasting charges coming in, not a lot of damage on these Chaos Warriors, and they dive in onto the Dwarf Warriors, getting pretty good damage. These Chosen now facing off against the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, but the Ulthar's Raiders popping their debuff on the Chosen. They're going to get hit by a lot of missile damage, and they're going to be taking a lot of damage. Yeah, look at that. Already down to half HP, less than half HP. These heroes getting debuffed. The melee attack is going to be hurting a lot too, but that's not where the damage is coming from. It's the Ulthar's Raiders that are doing a lot, and just like that, lickety split, the Chosen great weapons are routing. Now one of the Marauders slips through, intercepted by the Miners. Rough for them, but as the Thunderers are distracted, the Horsemen now taking out the artillery, one of the main tools to kill off the chariots, gonna be going down. Pretty uncomfortable indeed for the poor dwarves, as now we have 2 units of high HP chariots parading through the back line. Now the Chaos Infantry is having a much rougher time, but on the left flank here for the dwarves, the Chaos Infantry is holding a lot better, and that means that the chariots, they're going to have a lot of time to cycle charge here. There's no Slayers in the army for the dwarves too, so even if the engineers hits these chariots with a slow, I think they're going to be a pretty big problem here. Dwarf Warrior great weapons will help a little bit, but the chariots are still on very high HP, and we're seeing that the artillery dodging early on is paying off immensely. Over here, Chaos Warrior great weapons getting hit by more blasting charges. Doesn't matter if they really fall though, as the left flank is still holding out well. A little bit of a Searing Doom just to move the Ulthar's Raiders. Decent usage of Winds of Magic, but slightly inefficient, I would say. Still though, I guess there's not really much else to really use the Winds of Magic on. But if we take a look at the dwarves, they're having a really rough time now, as basically there's nothing to really deal with the chariots. The Ulthar Raiders are now getting engaged by the unit they were meant to destroy, but they will have a little bit of a pocket here to survive. The center line of Chaos has routed off, which means that they could group up and potentially get a bit of value here. That is a potential comeback for the dwarves. And the hero squad could pose a problem in the late game, but that really depends. I think, was that a Wrath and Ruin dropped on the Horsemen? Maybe, but another debuff coming on in. And these chariots just being a pain. If you look at it, they have 28 melee defense, and the warriors getting debuffed on their melee attack have 0, which means that they're hitting these chariots basically not at all, And even though they're sitting in combat, you can see the HP. They haven't taken a single hit because of the debuff. And actually, I'm sort of loving the debuff on the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal. Not a terrible choice, but the game isn't over yet. The Thunderers are now trying to disengage. The plan for the dwarves right now is to try and split up the Chaos forces so that they can get just a couple more volleys in to take out these chariots. You can see they are slowly losing HP, but like I said, if they had just lost a little bit more HP from those cannons, it could have been a completely different story, but now instead, they're plowing through the infantry. The Thunderers now getting routed off by one of the chariots, and the Raiders are now off the battlefield. 7 models left. They are not coming back anytime soon. And these chariots routing off the other unit of Thunderers, and I don't think there's any ranged units left for the dwarves. They do still have 1 unit of Urkon miners and the hero squad too. So it's not actually completely over yet. Hero squads for the dwarves can be quite scary, and with how low the chariots are, cycle charging might not be able to save them. Potentially there could be some damage from the throwing axes that could come in. So we'll keep an eye on that to see if Chaos manages to do well there though. The Master Engineer a little bit caught out, which is a nice win for the Chaos, but potentially he might be able to regroup with the other heroes. Horsemen shutting down the cannons, now moving on to the Thunderers. They're going to be routing off, and there's basically no more infantry left for the dwarves. They have a couple units of miners left, which is going to buy them a little bit of time. Balance of power has been stuck in the same position for the entire battle. But what can the dwarves do against the infantry? There's still 65 Chaos Warrior Great Weapons over here. That's basically the main pocket of strength. There's another one at 57 models, and even a couple of Marauders left. So not a whole ton of infantry, but enough to buy quite a bit of time for Chaos to do well. Throwing axes are mostly out of ammunition, and it's just going to come down to Thorek and how well his anti-infantry is. Another big debuff does drop too. Going to be helping those chariots stay very high on HP, and even the Chaos Warriors going to be taking a little bit less damage from these dwarven units. Chaos Sorcerer Lord high on HP too. In a pinch, Chaos can use him to cycle charge the heroes, but will it be enough? Will it be enough? Chariots moving on in. They're going to take a bit of damage from the hero squad here. Going to be a little bit scary for them. One of the chariots getting taken out, actually, very swiftly. That Thane just annihilating one of the chariot units in a swift 1-2 hit combo. I think Thorek and the Thane just absolutely annihilated it. And this is why you usually see people taking Sigvald. He would be able to easily ruin these 2 heroes here, but instead, it's going to be a little bit closer than Chaos sort of opted in for. The horsemen are completely out of ammunition, and it's going to come down to how well the Chaos Warrior Great Weapons can take out these heroes. Now, if you've been counting the Winds of Magic here, there have been a couple debuffs dropped by the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal. He has Arcane Conduit, so he's saving up for another one. Only 1 Searing Doom, so it's expected he probably has 1 or 2 more debuffs in the pocket. That's gonna buy like maybe half a minute worth of HP for the Chaos Warrior Great Weapons. Great Weapons, which is gonna help them out a tiny bit. There's no healing for the dwarves either, and there we go, just like that, like clockwork. Debuff is gonna drop. Takes a while, but there we go, it does drop. And if you take a look at their melee attack values, 27 and 26, the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal has 49 melee defense. That's actually enough where he basically isn't going to get hit by Thorek or the Thane. He still disengages though to get cycle charges in to increase his own melee attack to punch through. And if you look at the weapon strength of these warriors, it's going to be a bit higher than Thorek and the Thane. They're not going to be hitting that often, maybe 1 in every 4 attacks. And that is barely any damage here, and that debuff lasts forever, finally dropping. But you can see while it was running, the caster did not really take any damage at all. Plus there's horsemen in the distance, and I think the Chaos will be able to win it with a pretty interesting build here by Blood Penguin, bringing in the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal. And showing that you don't need final transmutation all the time to do well here. You don't even need Sigvald to kill off the single entity squad, as long as you have those debuffs and a single unit of infantry. Nice baiting out of attacks too by the Sorcerer Lord. You feint charges in so that the two heroes turn away from the units, and then they take a few extra hits. Really nice AoE though on those Chaos Warriors. Gonna be chunking down their HP a little bit, but this battle is deceptively in the favor of the dwarves, because we got 3 units of horsemen here that are gonna come in and just absolutely ruin their day. They have pretty nice armor piercing values too, so they should be able to do well. And just like that, the dwarves get pushed into army losses, and Blood Penguin showing some really nice games here today. I think he's been doing quite well for himself, very much on point. Bringing in the Chosen too, fan favorite unit of the viewers, getting pretty good values. They did get focused pretty hard, but the Warrior Great Weapons managed to carry in the late game. Really nice artillery dodging from the Chariots, something that I myself want to practice more too. Getting in insane value with them. Meanwhile, the dwarves are doing decently for themselves, but I don't think they really got too much value. Plus, sad cannons abound. 450 value, definitely not enough, with really only the blasting charges doing well. Pretty good game. I think that was a really nice execution to show how to tear apart the dwarves. Of course, a lot of people nowadays don't go for the hero squad as the dwarves. Instead, they opt for more Longbeards. And if you think about it, if Houseplant just had 2 units of Longbeard Great Weapons, he possibly could have won the infantry fight there. However, I'm not one to fully judge the builds of the players here. I trust that they are going with what they know works, and perhaps, the 2 units of Longbeards would not work nearly as well in other situations. But what's going on in chat? We got Painkiller asking if anyone likes Slanesh. I'm sure many people do. A lot of people in ODM also really enjoy the mobility playstyle and sort of the rush playstyle that the Beastmen have. And I feel like Slanesh would be very similar to that. Then talks about aquatic too. Should dwarves suffer penalties from aquatic for fighting in sand because they're sinking? That is brutal. That is brutal. Dwarves are not that hindered by their height. Have you seen their speed? They're actually, compared to other units of infantry and heavy armor, dwarves move pretty quickly. Oh, right. What else? Tzeentch is an aerial faction. Slanesh should be cavalry. That's pretty exciting. And then Khorne is infantry and Tzeentch is magic. I don't know. More of a Nurgle guy myself. Oh yes, Nurgle. Nurgle is the slow infantry push faction. Is it a best of 3? It is. It is indeed. So the next map's going to be Pillar of Bone. The Bone Zone. Championed, name by that Turin has given it. Whew. Fast for a dwarf indeed. But all of them in heavy armor are quite fast. Quite muscular indeed. Now the 2 factions that we're seeing, it's gonna be Houseplant's Empire against Plague Penguin's Bretonia. I gotta say, Bretonia, people say this is favored for Bretonia. I would I would agree actually. And this is a little bit of a risky pick. Blood Penguin, House Penguin, uses Bretonia as his main 2 picks. So to go into a faction that he's very confident in is definitely quite scary. But Houseplant obviously has a build in mind, readying up immediately. Definitely a show of strength here. But Blood Penguin, he knows what's going on. He surely knows how to play this matchup. So I'm really excited to see how well he does here. The usual idea that Bretonia go for here, they win the air fight because Empire can only field 1 flying unit. Bretonia win the cavalry fight because they have questing knights. And then really it's only the infantry that's a little bit sketchy, but even so, Battle Pilgrims can win that too. So honestly, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary for Bretonia, for Empire, on many, many fronts, for sure. Natural born sprinters. Oh, geez, I can't speak today. Natural born sprinters, for sure. I think that makes sense for the dwarves. You think Kislev could have massive issues against the demons in Warhammer 2? Let's see, in Warhammer 3, presumably. I don't know. I think Kislev might be in for a few issues in general. As a purely hybrid-based faction, we rarely see mass hybrid infantry getting taken, which would be sort of sad to see the front line against Chaos being bad against them. That'd be unfortunate, but I hope Kislev is a lot more meta than we expect. Hybrid infantry, yeah, like, you know, no one goes mass Lothern Sea Guard, and that's what Kislev is. I'm worried, but here we go. We have a match. It's gonna be the Empire. We got a bunch of skirmish cavalry and the Black Lions. They do not get killed off by artillery. They don't die to archers. The Empire or the Bretonians have to dive into melee to shut it down. That's pretty good. The Pistoliers too, really good for kite, and it puts the Bretonians on the timer. There's a lot of infantry here too to make sure that that timer burns down and that this Black Lion unit gets as much value as possible. We also have a Bright Wizard. What is this? What is this? Piercing bolts of burning, along with the Marcus Wolfheart net. I am so surprised we have not seen this earlier, but that is a combo that could really catch Blood Penguin off guard if he's not careful. That's gonna be pretty exciting for sure. Painkiller saying, did you miss the War Wagon battle? Oh my gosh, Empire. You gotta watch that game if you haven't seen it yet. I shall not spoil it, but you really gotta watch that game. Now for the Bretonian infantry, what do we got? We got peasant mobs. We got battle pilgrims, like I said, really good against Empire infantry. Some peasant bowmen, really good. And 2 paladins and the Fey Enchantress, opting not to go for the air game this time around. Not a bad choice by any means. And I would expect 4 questing knights. No, 1 knight of the realm, 2 knights of the realm. So a pretty cheap Empire cavalry force here, but it will actually pay off against this Empire build, as it has a lot of tools to chase down the skirmishers. Knights of the Realm, really fast and speedy knights, 75 speed against the 90 of Pistoliers, but they do have shields, which will help them out for sure. Now it's up to the Bretonians to move forwards. They want to get their archers to pressure the infantry here, to put the Empire on a timer. They want to keep away from the Black Lions too, and hopefully win the frontline fight so that they can shut down that Black Lion. So the questing knights and the knights errant, they'll be cycle charging the most likely, but they can't really get too close. So overall, I really do like this Empire build. It's very different from what you usually see, but will it hold? Will it hold? Always a very important question. Almost as important as will it blend, but I think in this case, it's a little bit more dubious as to whether or not it will. As for the front line, we do see the flagellants moving on up, but they are getting harried by the, and I don't know if that's the right word, but they are getting shot by the archers here, and the archers are extremely proficient against them. Poison 2 landing, and it seems like the Empire forces overextending just a tiny bit. The battle pilgrims too, at very high HP, are going to trade amazingly well. And what are the trebuchets focusing? It seems like they're focusing the Black Lions, a little bit of an RNG heavy play. If they do connect dead on, it will actually do quite a bit of damage. But this is very much an overtime type of play here. Now, Burning Head does drop, hits the Pox arrows, gets a good amount of value there. 13 kills, and we're gonna check the value here. Looks like 200 gold value because it hits another unit of peasant bowmen, and that's a really good play. Routes off one of them, buys a bit of time for those flagellants to do well, but will the battle pilgrims manage to push through? They're facing against flagellants, which is not the best matchup for them, and if you look at the Fey Enchantress, she actually got focused down by Marcus Wolfheart without Blood Penguin noticing. The paladins though are now moving in. Enchantress throws down a heal and stabilizes, but oh my goodness, she takes 2 huge volleys from, oh my gosh, 3 volleys from the War Wagons. Oh my gosh, and gets absolutely demolished. That is a huge loss on the Bretonian side. Another volley taking her out, and the War Wagons showing her who's boss, but not before she gets a chalice of potions to send a nice farewell message to the Bretonians, or to the Empire. The Bretonians, however, though, have taken a lot of damage, and they're routing off on many fronts, but they do have their cavalry in place. Moving in a little bit late, though. It would have been much better had they been able to dive in on the War Wagons. Perhaps a bit of a misplay not moving in the cavalry, because the field trebuchets, although they were defended, they really didn't get that much value. I don't know if it was worth defending there, but overall seems like it's pretty rough. Good luck, have fun earlier in the battle, showing up now, and it looks like the piercing bolt's going to be dropping. Overcast too, on top of all of the Empire infantry. That's a little bit of a misplay, I will admit. It does hit a few of the knights though, so maybe worth it, but a little bit of a strange play. Still, definitely Empire very much ahead on the balance of power. And the War Wagons, the Black Lions, annihilating one of the paladins, showing that they do insane damage to single entities apparently. And finally, after they use half of their ammunition, they finally get brought down by these questing knights, but I don't think it's going to be worth it. These pistoliers still manage to do well. And overall, I think the Empire have done it. They've managed to win a pretty rough matchup. I think overall there were a couple rough trades for the Bretonians, especially when it came to the burning heads and so on. But it appears we will be going on to the final ace match, with Houseplant bringing Blood Penguin down to the ace match, and a little bit of a different situation here too. Blood Penguin will be the one picking 3. Will he be able to win as well as he's done previously, or will Houseplant be able to take the win? We'll have to see. Real quick though, just double checking to make sure that the game is indeed won by the Empire. Yeah, we are seeing the Pistoliers. They have tons of ammunition. Army losses for Bretonia, so definitely a very clear win. So big question. Is Blood Penguin going to be able to come it back? He's won 2-1 in every matchup that he's played today, so perhaps just getting in the 1 loss before the win. His questing knights getting decent value, same with his Knights of the Realm, but just not enough. They weren't able to shut down this wagon. These 3 wagons managing to take out all of the single entities of Bretonia. They got just disgustingly low values. Meanwhile, Marcus with his nets and the caster, insanely good plays there. A really nice Empire build here too, and I really do like the skirmishers. So GG indeed. Let's see what we have for the ace match. And we have Dactor in chat too. I hope everything's going well for you. Not sure how well that combo works. I'm not entirely sure myself too, but if you get enough units grouping up, I feel like it could be quite scary. Wonder why Bretonia was so offensive. Well, they did push up a little bit. I feel like the Pistoliers were sort of forcing them to make a play. You said you didn't get to see the piercing bolts combo go off? I know. Instead it just slammed into some infantry. Getting a slight study break. Oh yeah, you got a lot of that school stuff to go over. Yeah. Brutal, but I'm happy to entertain. We've had some really nice games here today. Some unexpected wins too. If you check earlier in the VOD, there's a match between the Beastmen and the Empire, which went exactly how no one thought it would go, except for maybe Painkiller. Can you manual fire War Wagons? I don't believe you can. Very unfortunate. You can cast piercing bolts and then net immediately after that, and it can one-shot however many cavalry are in the AoE. Yeah. Artillery wagons, indeed. Indeed, fearsome. Very fearsome. I wonder how well it would have done against Lewin. That's my personal preference in this matchup, but we may never know. Oh man, saying man, Blood Penguin even excited to see such an interesting Empire build. Both of them Empire players. They're happy to exchange notes. So he's excited to see the ROR War Wagons do well. Some nice banter in chat for sure. Very competitive series today. Yeah, we've had 3 best of 3s. When did we start? 2 o'clock? So that was 2.5 hours ago. Yeah. Despite how fast the players get ready, these streams still can last quite a bit. Quite a bit in for sure. I'm actually pretty tired already, to be honest, but the power of you viewers gives me energy to continue on. And these really exciting games too. Very, very exciting. War Wagons. Decide this thing today. Yes, we've seen a 100% win rate of War Wagons taken by Empire. So, guys, at least I think, was there an Empire loss? I feel like there wasn't. So the moral of the story is to go War Wagons and try them out. They're better than you would think. A lot of people say that they're a meme, but you know, Turin knows it. He's watched a lot of games. He's played with them himself. We've seen our lovely players here today bringing the War Wagons, so I think they're pretty good. Houseplant saying, he's saying he thinks Bretonia needs mounted yeomen in the matchup to deal with pistoliers. Yeah, I think that's definitely a good choice for sure. Alternatively, you can play a more aggressive Bretonian style. Personally, I'm not a fan of the trebuchets, but that's just me. I'm not nearly that experienced in this matchup. I'm just giving my personal preferences. So whoever chooses the final War Wagons wins this day. Yes, for sure. Let's see, we've seen Empire against Bretonia. And we also saw Chaos against the Dwarves. So I would expect, if I had to put my guess, Blood Penguin's gonna do his pick 3. One of them is gonna be Empire. He's gonna take the War Wagons, and he's gonna win it. He's gonna win it. And if he doesn't take the War Wagons, if his Empire gets banned, then all is lost. This is the only way we can understand Warhammer now, with how these matches have been going. Oh man, what a good day though. Things have been going well. And we have the picks. Bretonia, Wood Elf, Chaos Band, Dwarves. Interesting. Oh, and I forgot, it's Houseplant picking the 3, which means this is exactly what Blood Penguin has been dealing with the entire series, this tournament, getting to counterpick here. We got some interesting choices, but what will Blood Penguin go? What factions are missing right now? You think Lizards, Norska, Wood Elves, and Dark Elves? Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of the Rush factions today. Only a couple Beastmen games. We did see Skaven, which is nice. Surprisingly, lack of Wood Elves though. Usually you see a lot more Wood Elves, but I think just the players that we got today don't really champion them, unfortunately. Yeah, we saw potentially there were a few times we could have seen Dark Elves, but not too much of them either, really. Okay, Plague Penguin. He says he's going Empire. He says he feels like he's supposed to ban Chaos here, but he doesn't like the Wood Elves. So he's gonna ban the Wood Elves. Alright. Alright. Pretty good. Alright. Blood banning Wood Elves. Oh boy. So, what do we got? We have out of the pick 3. Let's see, where is that darn pick 3? Chaos. What was it? Where was that pick 3? Okay, he's going Chaos. Blood Penguin going against the Chaos. Now, put your votes in, guys. Is he gonna go War Wagons? Is he gonna go War Wagons, and is he gonna win? I'd put up a vote, but the YouTube voting system is sort of janky, so I will opt out of that, and instead, you know, just let me know in chat. Let me know in chat if you think he's gonna go War Wagons, and let me know if you think he's gonna win with War Wagons. My faith has been restored in the Empire War Wagon strats, so perhaps yours has been too. Dark Elves are awesome against High Elves. Oh, I love that matchup. That one's always really fun. I feel like it's very thematic for sure. All right, but what are we seeing? We're seeing Empire versus Chaos. Of course, Empire can kite. Empire can go a more defensive build. Chaos sort of have to decide how much they want to defend against both. But overall, a lot of the time for Chaos, you see a max out Marauder Horseman style, since it generally doesn't hurt that much. Overall, though, it's usually, you know, you win the infantry fight, you push forwards, you win the game. That's the idea of Chaos, but will they be able to execute? Very important question indeed. You like any Dark Elf matchup where you can bring Medusa? Okay, so you like no Dark Elf matchups. Jokes aside, I don't know. Medusas are... They're in a weird place. The main problem is that they have so little HP, they really just get rolled over like no tomorrow. I wish we could see them more, because I think they're a really cool unit. But, you know, they have really low ammo, too. I feel like they need a bit of a buff, but... But, you know... Yeah. Alright. Now, on to the match. As we load on in, I will muster as much hype as I can, as I am starting to get really hungry. Hungry City is the usual when it comes to these tournaments. But we will make it. We will make it for the content. We will push through. and we'll see how this goes. The fire rate isn't that good either. Yeah, really low range. They could have done... They done did the Medusas dirty, but what do we have for Chaos here? It's going to be a mass infantry line with Archaon, Burning Head. This build wants to win the infantry fight. Tons of Marauders, tons of great weapons, tons of Forsaken, and by tons I mean 2, with Horsemen. Now, I believe, yep, it's 2 of each Horseman type, going for the variety pack of Marauder Horsemen. Gonna be pretty nice. Cavalry can't be that scary if you have this many great weapons. So let's see what Blood Penguin has decided to bring. We're gonna see Karl Franz taken to the air with his usual ability kit. Mostly combat buffs. And this combos really well with the cavalry. We have Empire Knights, Pistoliers. Not gonna have too many good targets here, although they can take out a few Marauder... Well, actually, no, they're gonna have a hard time versus the Marauder Horsemen, so I'm not sure how well they'll actually do. We also have the Silver Bullets, for those of you that enjoy handguns. Well, here they are, in the ROR form. They're really nice because of their magic damage. A Jade Wizard for healing. No Dwellers Below instead, opting to heal Franz. Now, that's gonna be a little bit scary, as Franz... He's gonna have his work cut out for him against so much infantry. It's gonna be quite scary indeed. He will be able to win against Archaon though, so that's a small win on the Empire front. But I'm a little bit worried about the front line. This is a lot of Chaos infantry. And with only 3 units of cavalry, all only Empire Knights, I'm a little bit skeptical to see if Empire can win it. But Blood Penguin has proven us wrong before. We'll see how they do as the battle begins. Why take... Oh, still talking about Dark Elves. Alright. Now, we don't see any War Wagons, so we definitely know Blood Penguin's going to lose this game, but we will pretend that there is a chance. The Pistoliers moving forward is going to be pressuring the Marauder Horsemen, and Pistoliers with good enough micro. They can dodge the Horseman shots and return fire, but actually a pretty unfortunate volley there. Despite the dodge, they still took quite a bit of damage. Pretty scary for these guys. Meanwhile, Chaos opting for a deny flank. Now this is pretty interesting. Chaos, realizing that they have the stronger skirmishing force, they're going to be avoiding an engagement, at least for a bit, while the horsemen get some damage. These guys shooting into the backs of the spearmen, avoiding those shields, getting in some pretty nice hits, but a bit of a misplay Or actually, I guess the silver bullets were hidden. But they do manage to get a really nice volley here, and that's a good trade for the Empire for sure. This makes it pretty hard for Chaos to find a good place to get damage in, since the silver bullets are defending this right flank. Meanwhile, the left flank is defended by the Pistoliers. But with 4 horsemen here now, they will likely be able to trade well, and I think Chaos will eventually start trading badly, especially once the silver bullets get online and operational, and they'll be able to poke away at the forces of Chaos. At the moment, though, it seems like they're trading pretty well, and continuing to opt for the non-engagement. Extending the skirmish phase, will it be worth it? The horsemen getting a few volleys off on the Empire Knights. Not a whole ton of damage, but every little amount matters. Over here, these skirmishers getting a nice volley in while the silver bullets are distracted. But it takes a quick turn from them to get the damage in. But oh my gosh, look at this positioning, guys. This hill is blocking the silver bullets from firing at the horsemen. Now that is a really nice use of terrain there. The horsemen won't be able to get hit, and instead silver bullets opting to fight Archaon instead. There are another unit of handgunners that we did miss. Could potentially win the fight against the horsemen here, which will be really good, but the front line is engaged right as the Empire starts to get a pretty good advantage. But a burning head, will it land? Oh my goodness, does it land? Takes the handgunners down to half HP, hits the unit of spearmen too, annihilating a few of them, but they barely hold their ground. Just kidding, they're routing. So they're off the battlefield. They'll likely get chased off by horsemen. And the silver bullets, look at this. They march forwards because of that terrain. The hill, the scariest threat in the entire game, gonna be saving those horsemen, and the silver bullets instead turning to fire at the Chaos Marauders. Friends, diving in early, Archaon landing a hit in his back. He has less melee defense when he's looking away. He takes a huge hit. Archaon misses the second one, and they're trying to duel each other right now. Silver bullets getting nice damage in against Archaon. Both of them have procs of their battle buffs, but Archaon, what an absolute beast. Just annihilating Franz. He's down to 1/3 HP now. He is getting healed up, but if he routes off, that'd be terrible. And another huge hit. Franz, Slayer of Kings, lands another hit. What's his melee attack? He has 78 melee attack against Franz's 67. That's going to be having him hit quite often, especially with that charge bonus. Another huge burning head lands. Franz on the verge of routing. If he breaks, it's basically over at this point, but he barely manages to hold as the Empire Knights come into support. Archaon at really low HP now. Have the tables turned? The Empire Knights getting the full surround. There's no support for Archaon here, and Franz could potentially win it. He has Foe Seeker. Archaon, will he be able to land a hit? It seems like Franz has to disengage again for fear of getting a hit and routing off. And it's going to be really close here. The Chaos Forces do have the balance of power, but if Franz kills Archaon, that could very much change with the Terror routes. Archaon trying to disengage, takes a single hit from Franz, and a heal dropping on Franz too. He's going to be at more HP than Archaon. Despite those massive hits, he lands another one, and oh my gosh, the heroes! The absolute heroes! Just a storybook ending as Franz getting beat down to the brink and coming back in the final stage of the battle. Oh my gosh, the heroes always just... What a movie trope, right? The heroes just coming back at the last second to defeat the evil enemy. Man, I can't believe that extends even to Warhammer, as now the handgunners are rallying back. They're firing at the infantry, the Marauder horsemen, getting warded off by the Pistoliers and the Empire cavalry, and there's nothing to shut these guys down. Just kidding. There's a single unit of Marauder horsemen, but will it be a last samurai situation? The handgunners turn, and will they get a good volley? A couple of the silver bullets land some shots. They have pretty good melee stats, and these guys are likely gonna rout those guys off. Archaon rallies though at the very last second, just barely managing to get a few hundred gold value with the burning head on those spear units. But will he friendly fire? No, really close positioning there on the friendly fire. The Marauder horsemen barely don't take damage there, but you can see here the handguns have stabilized, and they're gonna be routing off the horsemen. These guys over here dealing with these Marauder horsemen, they won't be too much for pain. And Franz coming in with the finishing blow on Archaon the Ever-Chosen. And now I worry, guys. I worry for the leadership of Chaos, because Franz is a beast. He's heal capped. But look at that mass rout on a single charge from Franz. They've seen Archaon fall and the Empire capitalizing on that leadership debuff. Oh my gosh, and everything. It's a mass rout. All of the infantry are gone and the Empire take it back. What? What just happened? Archaon dealing thousands of damage to Franz at the start of the battle. Barely not killing him, but having him on the verge of routing off. The healer coming in with the fat heals on Franz. Look at that. Archaon got almost 4,000 gold worth of damage. That is almost game-winning levels of damage there, but the Empire just barely managing to pull it back. Plus the defense against the Horsemen. Absolutely amazing games today. Blood Penguin, you have given us the most hyped games ever, with an insane showing of the Empire playstyle. GG's indeed. Franz coming back with the assistance of the healer, doing absolutely amazing, and then from there the Empire just pulling out the victory. Oh my gosh, the Pistolier is getting insane value too. Blood Penguin, a win. Well earned indeed. What an amazing tournament. Oh my gosh, yeah, Bowmore for sure. For sure, the healing and the cycle charging, I think it was a really nice play on both sides, but I gotta say, Blood Penguin has been on an absolute rampage. The master of 2-1 victories, and that's gonna be it. Really nice series, and to end it off, before I run out of energy, special thanks to our wonderful patrons who managed to allow us to host a tournament today. Of course, as always, very huge thanks to the to our tournament players who come on in and give us such wonderful games. But let me see if I can. I'm missing some links, guys. I'm sorry, I am missing. I repeat, we are missing some links. Yes, LoremasterOfSotek. We have partnered with Sotek Incorporated to do some pretty good cross promotion. So the description should now have the links, but for those of you that don't see it, I will also post it in the chat for you guys to check out. Yeah, he has a podcast to cover all things Warhammer related called Lorebeards. This is LoremasterOfSotek's Lorebeards. Check him out on his his Twitter and so on to get all the information on that. And he'll be sending players our way to play more on ladder. So definitely very exciting. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to all the sponsors: LoremasterOfSotek, Brandon Wagner, Romacarol, Bunny Arquette, AC Maiden, Biblington, J Phoenix, Alex Macabre, and Jack. If not for your support, we actually would not be able to host these tournaments like we do. So your support is actually extremely appreciated. And I think that's basically everything I had to go over. I don't know. I can say we have memberships now if you guys are interested. I don't know. I think we're done here. Thank you very much, guys, and peace out.